welcome to another exciting, thrill-packed, well, not really, episode of your favorite podcast, Hindsight is Horrifying.
Woo!
I'm Jason Mitchell, and I'm here with my co-host,
Darth Jader.
And we have, guess what, folks, another special guest.
From a Shakespeare group.
Yeah.
Because apparently those are our only friends.
His name is Adam.
Yes. The fourth Adam. No, just kidding. He actually has a different name, and I'll bring him on in just a second, listeners.
But today we're going to be going back to a show that sort of crossed generations, because I know people who were younger than me who loved the show. I know people who were older than me who love this show.
Oh, yes.
And I believe I heard a rumor somewhere that they're thinking about rebooting it.
I saw hints of it when I was looking up facts about it online.
If you haven't guessed it yet, yeah. The show that we're going to be talking about today is the
Animaniacs.
Yes. Darth, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, so yes, as Jason was saying, this is kind of a classic from my childhood, and our guest obviously picked the content, but the synopsis on it, I had to look it up, listeners, because usually a synopsis is a pretty straightforward description, and so I just had to see what they wrote down about Animaniacs, which on Google is: blending wit, slapstick, and pop culture references, the variety show Animaniacs features a large cast of characters whose predominant personalities are the Warner Brothers, Yakko and Wacko, and their sister Dot, three inseparable siblings who have a great time creating havoc and mayhem in the lives of everyone they meet. The series, which originally ran from 93 to 98, also features a number of comedic educational segments, often in musical form.
Yes.
Which is about as general and
that's
diplomatic
just sort of,
as you can be.
It's a very
in
generic way of
the show.
describing a show.
Absolutely.
Well, it is an animated series. It's not the first animated series we've done.
No, we've done SpongeBob.
Yeah.
We've done. I think that was the one animated series we've
think
done.
that was the only
actually,
animated
we've
series
done
that we've
animated
done.
movies, not series.
Yeah.
Like we did Shrek, and so yeah, this is the second animated series I believe that we've done.
Well, and of course, once again, we found ourselves faced with the situation where the show was it was too massive, it was too big. The oeuvre was too complex for the two of us to handle this on our own.
Exactly.
So we had to enlist the help of somebody else. And Darth, why don't you tell us who that is?
Well, this is Adam. Oh, sorry. Shakespearean slip, guys. No, just kidding. This is another friend of ours from our Shakespeare group that we met at Act One Theater. His name is Randy. We've actually mentioned him on our Much Ado episode because he played Don Jon in our production of Much Ado About Nothing. So, Randy, how about we say hi to the listeners?
Hi, listeners.
All
Guys,
right.
appreciate you having me on the show.
You're very welcome.
Absolutely.
And this was your choice. Because it's always the guest gets to pick the show. Tell us why'd you pick Animaniacs?
Well, I was having a conversation with the two of you and listening to you discuss the podcast. And the entire basis of the podcast is things that we watched as children that were wildly inappropriate, and now that we're looking at it as adults. And
Wondering why our parents let us watch them in the first place.
that's right. And there is no better example of that in my mind than Animaniacs. In particular, this episode that I have selected this evening.
Well, and this, your selection, Randy, actually reminds me of one of my first memories of when you and I first met, and you were telling this story at our Much Ado rap party where you were like, yeah, I remember Darth came up to me and she was like, hey, Randy, remember this cartoon from when we were kids? And you were like, no. I'm a little bit older than you are. And I hope it was a compliment that I thought you were my age, so there you go. But you were like, no, I'm a little bit older, so no, I don't really remember that. But then you surprised me by turning around and selecting Animaniacs, which was in its heyday when I was a kid. So I thought that was really funny.
That's right. I was watching it while I was in college. It was a wonderful afternoon distraction, which was right in the middle of whatever afternoon cartoons they used to show on TV.
Sure.
And so, to be fair, at the time, I did realize that the very adult content was adult content.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I knew a lot of kids who watched the show.
Oh yeah,
it was hilarious.
yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's not a show like South Park where it's just so obvious no parent's going to let them do it. I mean, it's subtle. You know,
It's
it's
very
subtle
rough.
enough.
Yeah, it's very Rocco in the sense that kids would remember it for the stories, whereas adults would remember it for the jokes.
Right.
So, yeah, and that's one thing I was trying to think back on because Animaniacs wasn't necessarily my favorite show, so I did have to re-immerse myself and check it out a little bit more and remind myself, oh yeah, I remember this episode. But there are so many characters that I don't particularly remember Yakko, Wacko, and Dot stories specifically. I remember Pinky and the Brain. I remember Buttons the
and the
dog. I remember
Yeah.
a lot of different hodgepodge characters.
Does anybody
that they had
remember
going on.
Two Stupid Dogs?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Two Stupid
Yeah,
Dogs.
very few people remember that show.
With the kazoo
Yeah.
intro. Oh God, I
Ball.
loved that show.
Ball. So why don't one of you tell us? I know you read the synopsis, but what? For those of you who are just, what is that horrible, disgusting word? Young.
Hey now, don't hate.
What is the show actually about?
Well, okay. I think Randy and I could actually give different perspectives on that since I started watching it when I was probably single digits and you started watching it in college. I honestly couldn't tell you what the show was about because in the description, and it's a very apt description, it's a variety show. It's just a bunch of different sketches geared toward kids. So it's a lot of color, a lot of zaniness, and pop culture references, which sometimes I'd get, sometimes I wouldn't. And it just, a lot of the jokes just went straight over my head, but it was mostly just fun for me to watch the colorful characters run around and whack each other with, big mosquito or bug smackers or whatever it was that they hit each other with, big clubs or mallets. Like it was just a really noisy, fun cartoon to my recollection.
Yeah, to me, watching this when I was 19, 20, 21 years old, it is a Warner Brothers production.
Yes.
And I think to a certain extent there was a very intentional tie back to the other Warner Brother cartoons.
Is that Pinky?
Pinky and the Brain, yes.
Of from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the Bugs Bunnies, the Porky Pigs, the Daffy Ducks.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it's that exact same formula just sort of reinvented for the 90s.
Yeah, it's cool because they really did a good job capturing that feel and also incorporating some of the old the cinematic comedy that was around at that time.
Right.
It has sort of you've got little hints of Bob Hope, little hints of Jerry Lewis.
Oh yeah,
all
they
sorts
make
of that
Dean
stuff
Martin
in there,
jokes. It's just like it's all. And actually mentioning Adam Darby's second episode because you brought up your favorite Disney character, Jason, that you were surprised to see when you were in California.
Oh yeah. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they kind of go back to an almost Oswald style of animation when it comes to the Warner Brothers and Warner sister Dot. They've got that black and white look that Mickey used to have. And what's really funny about that is that I read a story where when they were originally promoting this show in 1993, people who were involved with the show decided to put a big balloon version of Yakko on top of the Warner Brother Tower to, alert people like, hey, we've got a new cartoon coming down the pike. And the guy who ran the studios at the time, what was his name?
Jack Warner.
No, but I'll come back to that. But in Burbank, Bob Daly, who ran Warner Brothers Studio at the time, mistook Yakko the Balloon for Mickey Mouse. And the reason why that happened is because Yakko's got those sort of tarpy shorts on.
Yeah,
and it from a distance, you could sort of see how it looks like the old school Mickey Mouse. And thinking it was a prank.
You look like Mickey Mouse.
Daly thought it was a prank, so he had the balloon taken down. And he didn't understand that it was a promotional thing for the show, but once he found out that that's what it was, he was like, oh, okay, we need to change his look a little bit. So from there, they added whiskers to the Warner Brothers and Dot to make them look a little bit different from Mickey so that you couldn't make that mistake going forward.
Right.
That's the sort of background of the story, as a matter of fact, that the whole Yakko, Wacko, and Dot mythos, if you will, was that they were these cartoon characters from the 20s and 30s, but who were just too zany for the studio to deal with, so they end up locking them in the Warner Brothers tower.
Right, yeah.
And they locked all their footage in a safe, and
And so they finally escaped in the 90s and started to wreak havoc on
to
the...
seek their vengeance against the living.
I don't think it got that serious, but
Well, if they reboot it, it'll be a dark reboot, Tarantino to
Oh,
do his
goodness.
Animaniacs.
That'll get real.
Did you hear Tarantino was talking about doing a new Star Trek movie? Quentin Tarantino Star Trek. And
I actually heard that.
yeah,
Wow.
well, apparently because somebody said, "What if we did a Star Trek movie where people said bad words?" I know. Let's get Tarantino.
That's literally just an old animated way to
Yeah.
the Rocko's Modern Life approach. Hey, give me an occupation. Give
Yeah.
me a situation.
I mean, it's literally like somebody just went, "What do we got? Star Trek
but with cursing.
Tarantino, huh? I'm an executive. Give me a
Yowza.
bonus."
Oh, the spices that will go into
There's no
that.
blood in Star Trek is the trouble.
Right? Yeah. It's not.
Well, that's why the
yeah.
shirts are red.
Yeah.
It substituted blood.
Yeah.
Ugh. But yeah, so and this is another thing I didn't remember about the show is that it's when it does say variety show, they're not kidding because it's 3 different mini episodes within a 21-minute time frame, kind of like Rocko's Modern Life, except they did 2 episodes per frame for Rocco. But I didn't remember that for whatever reason, and maybe that's how they kept the attention of younger kids is the fact that the story changes every 10 minutes.
Right,
Like,
but that
Yeah.
was the same, strategy of the original Warner Brother cartoons. Is they were 7-minute shorts that you showed in a movie theater before the actual main thing. But then we got to see them as kids, and I say we, me and Jason, got to see them as kids on Saturday morning when we watched an hour's worth of Warner Brother cartoons that ended up being 6 episodes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there was a
I
little
can see why Cleopatra and Mark Antony killed themselves.
which is just so random. That's the middle episode that we're talking about right now.
And when I was rewatching the episode, it totally struck me for the first time. It never occurred to me when I was watching this the first time. Total reference to
Sonny Bono.
not.
No, they specifically bring him up several times in this segment.
They do, but Elizabeth Taylor in her version of Cleopatra.
Oh yeah, with the blue eyeshadow and everything. Yeah,
the
big time.
ridiculousness of her personality.
Well, and y'all may have missed it a second ago because in the second Cleopatra episode in the middle, Cleopatra's seeking the perfect cat in all of Egypt, and meanwhile, Runt and Rita, the opposite pair on Animaniacs, is just this big goofy dog. Yeah, they're the odd couple. And Rita's just this prissy feline, and she hangs out with this big goofy dog named Runt. They are seeking out Sonny Bono in Palm Beach, thinking that they're going to go live with him, and they wind up in ancient Egypt. 6 in one, half a dozen in the other.
Yeah,
like you do.
I mean,
You do. And so they wind up, Runt ends up a slave, helping build the pyramids, while Rita is living the life of Brian as, a pharaoh's cat. But later we find that they're going to try and sacrifice Rita. But all the while, they're trying to find the perfect cat for Cleopatra, and they hand her this blue cat at one point. And he's from Tiny Toons.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I was like, where do I recognize that cat from? So I had to do a little research because I was like, I know that face, but it was just a quick reference to
Get
Tiny
out of
Toon
here,
Adventures.
Garfield.
Gazorp Field.
You cats all look alike. Meow. Sorry. When did the show actually go on the air?
1993.
93. Wow. So I was 14 when the show came on the air.
That hurts.
Yeah.
I graduated from high school in 1993.
I was only 3 years behind you.
I'm not going to tell you guys how old I was in 1993. It'll sting a little bit more.
She was born in 1993.
No, I was not. I was born before that, but thank you.
But not very long before that. Yeah. Yeah, that's like the other day I was telling somebody, as we approach 2020, it really makes me feel weird to say I was born in the 1970s. Because that, even to me now, that sounds like such a long time ago.
But you're on the cusp.
I'm on the edge.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
on the edge.
right on the edge. It's not even really the 70s. I know it is.
Hey,
but
Carter
still.
was president when I was born, so that counts. Yeah.
Oh my. I did really relate to the opening, the intro music on this episode, though, Randy, because they change it up a little
That's
bit
right.
from
the
episode.
Simpsons.
Yeah, exactly. So they changed the intro music, and on this one, they're rhyming it with Wacko eats his snacks while Bill Clinton plays the sax, and
No,
I was
right,
just like,
yeah.
oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Actually, that one is in every single episode.
Is it?
There
Okay.
was. We'll have to go back and watch it. I don't remember what this one was, but the one that I always remember, and I remember that they change it every single episode when I was rewatching this episode,
Right.
Because I always remembered it as a reference to Dick Cheney.
Oh, okay.
Because the word is an any, it rhymes.
Got it.
And so we'll have to go back and recall
What
what,
do
it was
you,
in this
I'm
episode.
trying to think of something to rhyme with Lewinsky, but
That's why they had to go with sax instead of sex.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it rhymed with snacks, so
Yeah.
there you go.
This
and
was
meanwhile,
this was before the impeachment proceedings.
yes,
that-
it was
yeah, that's
before
true,
the
yeah.
scandal.
Yeah.
This
was
might
in-
have been before the Bronco chase, actually.
Well,
now that I'm thinking about
Yeah, I
it.
mean, this was back whenever he played the saxophone on
At the
Arsenio.
inauguration, yeah.
Oh, I was,
yeah,
I was
'cause
going to say on Arsenio.
Okay,
Yeah, because John Mulaney talks about that in his stand-up. He said, I remember being a kid and watching Bill Clinton come up with his campaign, and kids love Bill Clinton because he'd make appearances on MTV, and they'd be like, hey, Senator Clinton, what's your favorite food? I don't know, fries. And we're like, yay, we eat fries. And so kids just like Bill Clinton
I eat
because
fries.
he was casual
he's
like
just
that.
like me.
Exactly. So, yeah, when I saw this...
And you hear the voice of democracy dying in the corner. Representative government just
it's withering
wilting.
a slow death.
Bill Clinton's just like me. He never inhaled.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so there's that. But we kind of totally gloss over the first segment of this episode, which is this almost Murder on the Orient Express, but it's on a riverboat.
It's Murder on the Nile.
Yeah, Murder on the Nile. So yeah, because I wrote all of them down. The first one is Woke No Run, Home on Denial is the one with Cleopatra and Mark Antony.
Right.
The first one is the Hercule Yacko.
Hercule Yacko.
Hercule Yacko, yeah.
Which it's a takeoff of the Agatha Christie Murder
Yeah.
on the Nile.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry, I misunderstood what you were going for.
The Great Poirot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While
Poirot.
Yacko is investigating, because this is one of the reasons you said you wanted to talk about this show, Randy,
exactly
is the joke about Prince. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So in the episode, there is a crime. There is allegedly a stolen diamond, and it just so happens that the world's greatest detective, Hercule Yacko, happens to be on board, along with his two associates. I forget what their names are. So they come in to investigate the theft, and so Yacko directs Dot start dusting for prints, and she does indeed do so. And
She yells from the corner, I found Prince!
She literally pulls him out of the closet.
The singer.
singer.
For those of you who aren't aware.
The artist formerly known as Prince.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And is cradling him like a little baby, as Jade indicated, that he
We locate Prince.
locate Prince.
Yes.
And Yako says, no, fingerprints. And she looks at Prince and goes, I don't think so, and throws him out the porthole.
Chucks him out the window.
Yeah. And you know, it's quick, and that's the best of those jokes that we didn't get when we were kids were the ones that were like that. They were in there, they were quick, it was over with, and then you're like, wait, years later you hear it and you go, wait a minute.
That's something that your mom might have been cooking dinner in the background, like chopping vegetables, and she would have heard that joke and looked over her shoulder and thought, what?
Did I
and
really just hear that?
Yeah, exact from a kid's cartoon? It just,
I honestly don't even think my parents would have gotten it. I think my parents didn't get half of the jokes.
No, well, I think it's funny because and it's funny how naive your parents can be sometimes. I remember my parents, they were avid country music listeners back in the day, and they once asked me while the song was on the radio, we were in their car, and they were like, Jade, what does save a horse, ride a cowboy? And I was like, I'm not explaining that to you. And they said, why? What's wrong with it? And I was like,
Well,
once again.
you see, during the First World War, really? No, Mom.
We're not getting into this.
Yeah.
We're just not.
No,
There's a horse shortage.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing about
Adopt, don't shop.
Yeah, what? That's illegal. You're talking. Sorry, I thought
Horses.
Never
Pet
mind.
adoptions.
Yeah, horses.
Horses.
Sorry. I
you
thought you were about
weirdo.
cowboys.
Not cowboys.
I'm always shopping for cowboys. Yeah, brought that to a screeching halt.
silent
There
everybody.
you go.
Well, okay, so one of the things that I always like to get into whenever we talk about a show that because if you had a time machine and you traveled back to, when you were, 8, 13, whatever, I've always said one of the things that would surprise all of us would be how many shows there were. We watched a lot of TV.
Yes.
We really watched a lot of TV. But some things stick, like this stuck for you. And it's always interesting to think, well, why did Animaniacs stick? But, Two Stupid Dogs totally failed. And
You have to wonder, because Two Stupid Dogs is
it was
pure
brilliant.
genius.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Yeah. But, why does something stay with you from when you were a kid? And for me, a big part of it was just the fact that if it came on at the right time after school, it became a part of my routine, and then that was it.
And that's something we've discussed too. It's kind of like how you said the Nick at Night block that you look forward to.
Yeah.
Okay. When I look back on the Nick at Night
Which
block,
I think Conan is on Nick at Night now. So
yeah, so is that 70s show. It's depressing. But you had to put up with certain shows in your quote unquote block of shows. For instance, I was never a big fan of Green Acres, but it came on before the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Right, yeah.
So I had to put up with a half hour of Green Acres in order to watch the Dick Van Dyke Show.
It wasn't bad, but it wasn't. I mean, Eddie,
it was just kind of meh.
Yeah.
That's
Mr.
one of those things that never
Douglas.
stuck. Exactly. It never stood out. But, Dick Van Dyke. But I adore Dick Van Dyke. I love the Beverly Hillbillies.
Dick
I
Van
love
Dyke's
all
the
of
best
those.
show ever.
But with the block, it's kind of like what you said, Jason. It just becomes a part of your routine. You
Yeah.
get home at 4 p.m. every day from school. And the first show you want to catch is Recess or That 70s Show or whatever it was that came on.
Saved by the
For me,
Bell.
it was Boy Meets World. That was huge when I would come home from school.
Yes.
And I had to get home right at 4. I'd usually miss the first couple of minutes
Yeah.
because my bus was a few minutes behind that schedule. So there'd be 2 episodes of Boy Meets World, then an episode of something I didn't
we
care
didn't
about.
have buses. They didn't-
Walk to school
they
in the
didn't-
snow both
No,
ways.
seriously, there were no buses that ran out to where I lived.
Oh, that's just...
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
you've talked about times before Blockbuster and whatnot. It was
Oh,
just
yeah.
the dark ages when you
Yeah.
grew up.
Yeah, I remember when
the days of yore.
Yeah, I remember when Blockbuster was a new thing. When it put all the other video rental stores out of business.
Before it
Mom
became a
and
tape.
pops.
Yeah. Before it became a things Tim Howard could save
Oh
joke.
my God.
Do you remember Laserdiscs?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I never had a Laserdisc. And when I was in college, I tried to get one on eBay.
My dad had a Laserdisc, and he had two discs. One was Gandhi, the other was Pirates of Penzance.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say one was, hidden under his mattress.
No, I don't think
Emmanuel
they made
in
those.
space.
I don't think they made those in Laserdisc.
What is this Laserdisc you speak? No,
The porn industry was too smart to ever invest its money in Laserdisc.
Yeah, they're very good at picking the technologies that are gonna stick around.
Well, my guess is the world where the porn industry goes, the world follows.
Yeah. Yeah.
If all the porn were taken off the internet, there'd only be one website left, and it'd be called "Bring Back the Porn."
Yeah.
from
Careful with that
Scrubs.
joke. It's an antique.
No, but Laserdisc, we're not going too far back. We actually had one of our guests try to explain to me what a VHS cassette was, and I was like, "Yeah, I appreciate that you think that I'm that young, but it's funny how we've gone through different generations of technology on this show."
Do you know what a Betamax cassette is?
I do
yeah.
indeed. Yes.
Well,
Believe it or not.
The thing about the old mom and pop video stores too that was so nice was that Alfalfa was the name of our mom and pop video store.
Okay.
Blockbuster was, they had any Blockbuster you went to, more or less, they had about the same selection. Because they got all their tapes from the same people.
Yeah.
But the mom and pop stores, you would go in
Had
there,
stuff that you've
and
never even
they
heard of
would, Yeah,
before.
they would have
Yeah.
the weirdest, most eclectic. In fact, the reason I like anime was because this little mom and pop video store just had this. They called it. It was back when they called it Japanimation. Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, and it was great because we as kids were able to rent these incredibly inappropriate movies.
Oh, they're horrendous. Yeah.
because our parents thought, well, they're cartoons.
It's a cartoon. Yeah.
How bad could a cartoon possibly be?
Bob's Burgers, Family Guy,
Oh,
South
no.
Park.
No,
those were very
no,
obvious
no.
adult cartoons.
No,
Yeah.
I know. But
yeah.
back in the day, that
Try
used to...
I mean,
Yeah.
it was Simpsons that really woke that generation
Yes.
up.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the Simpsons came along that any adult had any sense that you could actually have a cartoon for adults.
Right.
Exactly. Like, and that used to be the measuring stick. Oh, it's
yeah.
a cartoon. It's safe for the kids to watch. I've literally heard my parents say that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just cartoons. It's nothing
animated.
bad.
Yeah. What's wrong?
Like,
And the thing is, if you go back to the 30s, the cartoons, when cartoons first came out, they were explicitly meant for adults. They were not originally contemplated as being things for kids. So
like when you look at the origin stories of SpongeBob SquarePants, of even Bob's Burgers, which is still considered it's adult fare. Bob's Burgers started out with the family as cannibals. But
they weren't actually cannibals.
No, they were serving human flesh in their restaurant. That's why the first episode.
But they weren't eating it, so that's why they weren't.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. They were making cannibalism accessible to the neighborhood gang. Let me rephrase that. But no, that's why the first episode is called Human Flesh, because originally the show was supposed to be a lot darker than it is.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, this is on Fox. We're not going to do that. And so they had to sort of revamp things.
I could just never get over Archer being a burger cook.
A fry cook.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like somebody told them, hey, you know how we had Lucy, Daughter of the Devil? Yeah. And remember how it got canceled?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Let's not do that
Yeah,
again.
Don't make that happen
Okay?
again.
Yeah. We're Fox. We're not going to run Death Clock.
And it's on its 10th season.
Yeah,
that's
10's
about
coming
to
up.
premiere in September.
And the movie, they're going to start working on the movie soon. Yeah.
I did not know this.
Yeah. It's going to be a musical.
Of course it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
The Sassy Sisterhood musical to Die Hard.
Yeah. But no, if you go back and you look at like the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, and when I was a kid, because of Nickelodeon played the old Warner Brothers cartoons like every day. So I watched Looney Tunes all the time.
Sure.
And looking back on it, they were not inappropriate. I mean, I really even thinking back on it now, they weren't.
Not even in an irreverent way, the way this show is. There would be, I can see some crossover, because in the first segment of this episode, for instance, when they're doing the Agatha Christie parody, they're making really silly jokes like, hey, I want everybody to wait for me in the stateroom, and the door has a picture of the United States of America. That kind of Bugs Bunny would make those kind of jokes, and Elmer Fudd, all those guys would make jokes like that.
Well, but like Bugs Bunny, I mean, back in the 30s, there was a short called Little Hot Riding Hood, and you can imagine what it was about. I mean, like these things were not. And I think that's the thing that parents didn't get with the Japanese stuff, because in Japan it was the same way. Animation was not for kids. It was something that it became for kids.
Right.
But it's
not what its original intent was.
Don't ever go to the video store and rent Ninja Scroll and try to watch that with your mom. She will not like it. She might like it, but she's not going to let you watch it.
Y'all won't like it together.
Yeah, no, it would be
like
awkward.
The time my dad and I made the mistake of watching Team America together. That was
yeah.
It was
no, you don't want to watch that with your dad.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine though. Adam, the one from
middle-aged
Texas.
Man.
Yes, middle-aged Adam.
Not me, middle-aged Adam.
Right. His dad is the exact opposite of that. He was always the coolest guy, because he was the one who he really didn't care if he was watching something like that, and we as teenagers were hanging out, over at the house. Yeah, whatever.
That's kind of a dad thing, though. It's like,
yeah, it's like
dads don't really crack down.
I'm comfortable, and I'm not getting out of my chair. So if that means you kids watch this, I can't really be held accountable.
There you go. I was out of range, honey. I couldn't hear what was on the TV. I don't know what these kids are watching.
Honey, to be fair, I was very drunk at the time.
I recall being about 8, 9 years old, speaking of Prince, and somebody had cable, and we were at a party. It was an adult party, but all the kids were hanging out inside. Purple Rain comes on, and Apollonia comes out of the water, man, and just as she did, somebody's dad walked in.
Oh no!
And I probably am not going to repeat exactly what he said with reference to her particular bit of anatomy, but it was definitely a tacit approval of what the boys were watching.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, because I mean, as a father, I'm sure you know that the day you became a father, that part of your brain that was able to psychically detect things like that became active, and it's like, wait.
My dad radar is going
Guys,
off.
I gotta go. The kids are watching something.
Well, and it seems to, there's no limit on the age for that either. Because I remember I was watching Meet the Fockers by myself. I was about 20.
That's a sad story.
No, I was in my. I was home. I was
do you-
home for the summer. And I was watching it in my parents' living room, and I'm by myself. And then my mom was upstairs doing laundry or something, and then she sees what I'm watching. She goes, "Oh, I remember that movie being funny," and sits down and watch it with me. Then they start talking about the subject of circumcision and how Ben Stiller's got botched, and I laughed at a joke about an anteater meets a German army helmet. And my mom was like, "How do you know what that means?" I said, "I don't. It just sounds horrendous."
Yeah. I have no idea what this joke is about.
No,
Did I
sure
tell you I
not.
took an anatomy class in
Yes.
college?
They taught us health in high school. You're aware of that, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing though. You can't go. I mean, I remember as a kid watching movies, and if there was any nudity, at first it's like this really big deal. No, fast forward or whatever. It's like eventually
You know what? Forget
my dad's
it.
like, yeah, turn your head.
Let's just, see, that's my dad and my policy. If there's ever an awkward moment of something of that nature happening in a movie that we don't expect, we just stare straight forward and never discuss it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's never going to come up again.
Exactly.
We implemented that policy a lot with Team America, with the puppets clacking together
Well,
and
that's
all
a
that
good,
awkwardness.
that's a good dad policy to have, which is just, Dad, did you? Nope, we're not discussing it.
It didn't happen.
So I have a friend and former colleague who I used to work with, and his mother-in-law lived in California. I was living in Nashville at the time. And mother-in-law came to visit for Christmas, and they were at the mall and decided to see a movie while they were at the mall. And somehow or another, I forget whether it was Bad Santa or Bad Santa 2.
No. Either way.
Yeah, does
Well-
it make a difference?
But he tells the story brilliantly, and I'm probably not going to be able to again provide all the details. But there was, it opens up, Christmas song is playing, cameras panning through the mall. It goes into a store. It goes back into a dressing room where there's some very
Risque.
Hanky
noises going on in one of the dressing rooms, and after a moment where that stops and they're breathing heavy, Billy Bob Thornton says to the young lady whom he's with,
Lauren Graham, I
Lauren
think.
Graham.
"Girl, you ain't gonna shit right for a week."
Oh, God.
Not something you ever want to be in the presence of
Your mother-in-law.
Yeah, your
No,
mother-in-law.
you don't.
Mother-in-law would be so much worse because I can't laugh. I
No,
can't laugh.
no.
I have to pretend I didn't hear
I'm
it.
still trying to make a good impression on this.
Quick, get your
person.
phone out.
She doesn't have to love me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh no, I was checking my email.
She's under no obligation. Oh, I just got a funny text. What's happening on the screen?
Was that one of his goofabouts? Ha ha ha.
I'm sure it was funny in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but see, and that's
I
the
don't
thing.
get it.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Can
what
you
you did.
explain it to
No,
me?
you have to ask your mother-in-law. I don't get that joke. What was he talking about?
Can you draw me a picture?
Do you understand it, mother-in-law?
Well, I think that was the argument that dads gave up at that point because moms would continue arguing.
Yeah.
If you're like, "Do you understand it?" Well, of course I understand it. Do you? And your mom is
Yeah.
going to keep arguing
Yeah.
with you. Whereas your dad's like, "Did you understand that?" And you're like, "Did you?" And he's like, "You know what? Respect.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
just leave this lie."
Don't ask the question if you don't want to know the answer.
Exactly.
Precisely.
Exactly.
But one thing I wanted to bring up about this episode, it's actually incredibly apt, Randy, that you chose this particular episode of Animaniacs. The closing segment is a Shakespeare segment.
Yes.
Which we only talk to people who we've met in our Shakespeare group. So as you well
Yeah, we're gonna
know
run
at
out
this
of people
point-
pretty soon. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. But yeah, I actually wrote down the whole sketch. I thought it was so funny because Yakko gets up and does Puck's closing speech from Midsummer Night's Dream.
Exactly. Now, not only is it a
And that was a
Shakespeare
show that we
scene,
were
it's
in
one that
together.
I did.
Yes, it is. Because
Was there any
Randy-
rapping in it?
in this version, I'm not sure. I get that. I think there was rapping in a version
But
recently.
the Batmobile is in it.
Yes, and Batman and Robin show up.
Because in the 90s, Warner Brothers had the rights to Batman.
They
That's
did
right.
indeed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, arguably, some would say the best Batman movie adaptation was Warner Brothers. I don't remember what year it was. Like, God, that was like '89, I think. The Michael Keaton Batman.
Is that two? Or
I was about to say which one.
The first one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the first one was way better than Batman Returns.
I don't know. People have argued Batman
Really?
2 is the best.
There's such a wide array of feelings.
Which one had
regarding-
Michelle Pfeiffer in it? Was that two?
Two.
That was two.
That was two.
2 had Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito as the Penguin, which
Yes.
was genius.
Oh my god, it
Yeah.
was brilliant.
Yeah. No, but so yeah, I could see Warner Brothers, playing it. Warner Brothers has gone through a weird phase. They're not really like they've got all these great properties.
But they could never really figure out their overall theme. They don't have one particular feel. They've got so
Yeah.
many different pans and so many different
Yeah,
fires.
they haven't translated into the 21st century nearly as well as like Disney. I
No,
mean,
because they had some success sort of in the early 2000s when they were the WB doing like Dawson's Creek
God, I remember
and
the WB.
Gilmore
yeah.
Girls and all those
Yeah.
other shows that transferred over to the CB network, I believe it is. But
Remember those old networks that don't exist? I mean, I remember being in a hotel room somewhere, and what is this?
I remember the Warner-
UPN. What is UPN?
I remember the Warner Brothers Frog, right? Wasn't
Oh,
he?
yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
my baby. Hello, my darling. Yeah.
Hello, my ragtime gal.
That one, exactly. And it's just like, I forgot that was even associated with Warner Brothers because, like
Yeah.
you said, Jason, they've transitioned through so many different projects and shows throughout the years that you're
But-
like, oh yeah, that was the WB.
But the cool thing was that they would do things. Definitely back in the '90s, they would do things that were. I don't see studios doing like Babylon 5. My all-time favorite TV show was distributed by Warner Brothers, and because it was distributed by Warner Brothers,
Your all-time favorite show was Babylon 5?
yes, all-time favorite
Shots
show.
fired.
Yeah,
Just checking. Just making sure I heard correctly.
yeah, not season 1, season 2, 3, and 4. But because they were distributed by Warner Brothers, they got to use they had access to all the Warner Brothers stuff, and so they would put in like Bugs Bunny, or they would put Daffy Duck in different places like that. And I was like, well, that was cool, Warner Brothers.
Then
And
Space Jam happened. And, no,
Oh,
I'm just
God,
kidding. With all the
Space
different
Jam.
cartoons.
I went to Fry's the other day, and they always not always, but they occasionally have a TV up in the front. That they're please
Playing a movie.
please don't buy it from Amazon, buy it from us. And then you talk to a salesman for 30 seconds there, and you realize I'm just going to go buy it on Amazon. Sorry,
Because it's about $300 cheaper on Amazon. Yeah.
But I went in there the other day, and they were playing Space Jam. That was
Welcome to the Space Jam.
yeah, but it's sort of someone at that store literally had to say, what movie should I put on and welcome our
They're remaking Space Jam with.
What?
Yes. There was a rumor at the very least. So I'm not really 100% sure about it, but there were different hints about maybe LeBron James playing, not happening.
LeBron doesn't have the personality for it.
Yeah,
shoot.
Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan,
Yeah,
Okay.
but Michael Jordan was
Ooh,
never...
they could
But the
get
other
Scottie
thing is,
Pippen.
like who
He was
what-
in the first one.
What kids know who knows who Bugs Bunny is anymore?
Right,
I
exactly.
mean, my son does because I have forced him to watch a number of Bugs Bunny and
Well,
Roadrunners.
they're
If you've
bringing
seen Lethal
well,
Weapon, you know who Bugs Bunny
well,
is.
they're actually bringing back all of the old Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. They're bringing it back, but they've explicitly said we're not aiming for kids. We're going to do Looney Tunes the way they're aiming for the audiences that remember watching Looney Tunes, but who are now grown-ups.
We just about have to because the nostalgia's half the
right.
battle.
Yeah,
Right, they're doing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle strategy.
yeah.
But without Michael Bay, hopefully.
Man, I love that show when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That was
yeah.
that
Great.
I was just I was obsessed with TMNT.
I honestly haven't laughed so hard at a meme as I did the other day because it was talking about the difference between girls and guys when you're growing up. It's like, yeah, okay, I didn't play with Barbie. I mean, all right, fine. I'm a girl. I grew up in the 90s. I had Barbie dolls, but that's just because my Ninja Turtles needed bitches, okay? Like,
It's weird. None of the girls that I hung out with played with Barbie.
I had them, but I mean, I had a hodgepodge. I had He-Man. I had a mixture of everything. I love.
So-
I had
so
I
many-
loved the tiger from He-Man. That was my thing.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, oh, He-Man comes with this. Okay, I don't care. I just want the green tiger.
Yeah.
Oh, the one he rode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was his name? Thundercat.
No, not Thundercat.
No,
Cringer.
Thundercat
Cringer.
is his own
Crin-
thing.
No, Cringer was.
Cringer
Cringer
was-
turned into Thundercat.
Did he?
No,
Yeah.
Thundercats was a show.
Yeah, Thundercats was
Oh,
his
it was
own
a-
entity.
No, Cringer
Which was
turned
a cool
into
show.
Battlecat.
Battle
Oh,
Cat.
okay, yeah,
Battle
something cat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do
Something
either of
like
you
that.
remember the show Insectoids? No one remembers
I don't
it.
remember
No.
that.
No, you got to look it up. It was a show. It was the weirdest concept for a show. It was basically
No.
people, but they had sort of bug features, and they had like they rode like these huge
That was every cartoon in the 80s. You
yeah,
had
this
you had what were the ones where the Silver Hawks,
oh
where they were like the half bird, half robot bird, half human.
Oh, no, that I remember vaguely.
You had I sparked a memory earlier when you were talking about like you keep watching these shows out of repetition and they stick in your head because of that. Remember Street Sharks?
oh yeah,
Jawsome.
yeah.
Street Sharks. Oh, that just jumped out of the deepest, darkest recesses of my brain.
and you could go
The
back.
skateboarding shark human.
You
the
could go
humanoid
hybrids.
shark things with like board shorts and
Yeah,
skateboards.
But he to
And
be
Valley
fair,
Boy accents.
he was
Lord.
no Manimal. You know, no one remembers
And
Manimal.
No, because you had Animorphs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But other than G.I. Joe and Transformers, every cartoon in the 80s was something to do with a human and animal hybrid.
Yeah. Well, no, you're right there. I mean,
Convincing me
the
I'm wrong.
littles, they were sort
Thundercats.
of mice. You know, they weren't mice, but the littles all sort of had mouse features. You remember
Well,
the littles, right?
Yeah, I do, but but it's making me flash back to a different episode of Ours because what we talked about, how animation evolves that way. It seems like the 80s went through something similar to what we did with Pixar. So like if we're back in the 80s, Randy made the point that like everything was humanoid animal hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get to Toy Story, and the reason why they started out doing movies about like toys and animals and such is because when they first started animating humans in that method of animation,
Oh, it looked terrible.
oh,
Yeah.
it looked horrendous. It looked
Right.
really scary.
Yeah.
But then you evolve into stuff like Shrek, and you eventually start getting really good at animating people. But
Yeah.
it started out, and we said the reason why Toy Story was acceptable because Woody's, he's a person, but he's a toy.
Right,
He's
yeah.
a little wooden
You
sheriff.
don't have to worry about the uncanny valley with the toy and all that stuff.
Right,
you know.
but like maybe that was the sort of transition of the 80s is the humanoid animal.
It does
thing
actually make
into-
sense because if you mix a person with an animal as a cartoon character, it's probably going to be easier to draw because you're not trying to draw an accurate human,
Right.
You know.
And even in the 80s, it was prior to the use of computers, which
Yeah.
means they were sending all this stuff overseas to have people
Yeah.
do it by hand.
Yeah.
Right, and so it was a little stiffer, but and they didn't have the same kind of budget as say Disney in the 90s, where they can afford
Hanna-Barbera.
to bring in
Right, yeah.
live lions for the animators to draw. Like it's just they don't have that same sort of quality going.
Oh
on,
yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, and that's always the budget side. I mean, yeah, like Ratatouille, where they had a person who trained rats bring in pet rats, and just the halls were full of boxes of pet rats. So
Really?
the animators could just go out and just look at them and see how they moved.
Huh.
But
Yeah.
that being said, I mean, if you look at the cartoons from the 80s, like there's still almost a quantum leap from the cartoons of the 70s.
I'll never know where he left.
You know,
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the old Hanna-Barbera.
yeah,
I mean, they were awful.
yeah.
You know, I remember even as a kid watching stuff like, Scooby-Doo
Scooby-Doo.
and going, the background,
It's exactly the
yeah,
same.
it's the same background. like everyone's moving, but
It's just on a loop.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
the
It's a simulation. inside a
Spider-Man and his
simulation.
amazing friends?
yes, yeah,
Like, I swear they use the same background in every single
yeah,
episode.
yeah. Well, or C-Lab.
Yep.
C-Lab was classic for that, which is great because then they made C-Lab.
What is this, C-Lab? But yeah, no, I posted something to our Facebook account today, Jason, where it's like, oh,
Because
your
Instagram was broken today.
Yes, it was.
Facebook was also broken today.
Yeah, that's true. And Oculus.
No, but it was something to the effect of your childhood was awesome. If you remember the Super Friends, and then it's like Wonder Woman, Superman, Batman, and then Wendy and Marvin and Super Dog. And I posted something to the effect of like, those three were just the scrappy do of the Super Friends, and some of y'all just don't seem to realize
Yeah.
this.
Yes, having recently gone back and watched the Super Friends, I can tell you it does not age well.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, I
No.
guaranteed.
No.
But have you guys seen the videos that somebody did where they turned it into a Your Mama contest with the Super Friends? So Batman and Superman approach one another. And I'll put this in the show notes for you listeners. Batman and Superman approach each other, and it's obviously two very large black men reading for these two incredibly white characters. And one of them walks up and he's like, "Hey man," and the jokes don't even make sense. It's something to the effect of like, "Hey man, your mama is so fat when she goes to the grocery store, she buys groceries," and it's so terrible. But they just sort of, it's one of those bad
fits.
lip dub situations. It's horrible.
Your mama's so fat, her doctor worried about her getting diabetes.
No, one of them is when she sits on a chair, she sits on it. It's so awful, but it's inexplicably funny.
Yeah, but going back to the whole quantum leap thing, you can do the joke again.
I'll never know where he left.
You know where he leapt.
I think we've done that approximately 40 times on this show.
We're going for every episode.
Oh yeah. Just like Community.
Yeah. See, I didn't bring it up. You
I know,
brought it
but
up
it's
this
stuck
time.
it's rented space in my head now. It's all your fault.
But when you look at, because one of the great things, in fact, maybe the greatest thing about our civilization today is that we can go on YouTube and just look at 30, 40 minutes of
You can
just
fall down
intros.
a rabbit hole of distractions.
Well, you can just find intros from shows,
Uh-huh.
and it's literally like the intro to The Real Ghostbusters, the intro to The Littles, the intro to Mask. Anybody remember Mask?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Mask was awesome.
I had all the toys. Not only did I watch the show, I had all the toys.
Dude, Mask was the bomb, man.
Yeah, it was.
Well, and as opposed to our parents who had to remember all of these songs, because when I was growing up, it was kind of funny. My dad would sing me jingles and stuff to entertain me from commercials that he remembered as a kid.
Yeah.
Like
I am the frito bandito.
I'm sure. No, like all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, like stuff like that. And that's just what was stuck in his head. Whereas we have this big cheat system of YouTube and the internet.
Yeah.
And we, like you said, we can go up and look up anything that we want. And even, he was even singing me songs from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where he said they would go through the zoo or something, and the little dad and boy puppet, the little boy would ask the dad, like, "What is that animal, Dad?" Or like, "Look there, Daddy, do you see there's a
That's
bird in his
Cthulhu,
tuxedo?" He said, "No, that's not what it is at all. That's an animal people call a penguin." And that's just stuff that's stuck in his head.
Oh, yeah,
And so he
yeah.
would sing that to me when
yeah.
I was little.
Yeah.
But with us, we can go and look up the lyrics. We never have to actually question that.
Well,
but-
and the weird thing is that when you do that, because I did the other day, not the other day, this was a while ago. I went and I watched the Nickelodeon, the bumpers that they would do at Nickelodeon.
Bumper.
Yeah, and it was the Nick
Nickelodeon. Yep.
and it was the weirdest thing. I'm like watching these, and it's like I had this sort of like sense memory where I felt this feeling like I was sitting at my grandmother's house watching
Nostalgia.
it on that crappy TV,
Yep.
and it's like, oh my God.
On that TV that was roughly the size of my current car.
Yeah. No, my grandmother had a TV that, kids these days don't know what vertical hold means.
No.
But when
It's
you're
not a thing
when you're
anymore.
trying to watch Swamp Thing on USA, and because Swamp Thing came on before Airwolf, and you really wanted to watch Airwolf, and you just had to sit through Swamp
Thunder.
Thing. Oh yeah, Blue Thunder was awesome. Roy Scheider, yeah. But then the TV would start. Literally, the image would just flip and flip and flip, and you would have to adjust something called vertical hold until you locked it in place.
Or you could just make your brother
the
hold
image
on to
would
the
just-
rabbit ears.
The image would just shift.
Yeah.
Until you lined it up. Yeah. But speaking of the Nickelodeon bumpers, one of the ones that still sticks with me is it was these three, not like Rockette dancers, but it was these three female singers, and they would sing, "After these messages, we'll be right back." Yeah,
Oh yeah,
exactly.
I totally remember that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Hey, I have a question about Animaniacs real quick. I seem to
oh,
remember
right,
that-
we're talking about Animaniacs.
Yeah, I seem to remember that there was a Spielberg connection.
yeah, he produced it.
He was the
He
producer?
was the producer.
Man, Spielberg used to be... I mean, okay, Spielberg is still awesome. As a human being, he is still awesome. But he used to make the coolest shit.
Yeah.
I mean, he had... What was it? Amazing Tales?
Amazing Tales.
Was it? No, shit, what was it?
I remember Tailspin, but I don't
No,
remember
it
Amazing
was
Tales.
Yeah,
Yep.
Tailspin was awesome.
Baloo the Bear.
No, it was an anthology series. It wasn't like Twilight Zone. It was I'm gonna have to look it up. But he did that. He produced Sequest DSV. Anybody remember that? With Roy Scheider as the captain of the submarine. No one remembers Sequest. Yeah, I think it only lasted like once. It was this TV series about the future when we traveled underwater as just like that was a thing our civilization did. And the Sequest was this massive submarine captained by Roy Scheider. Yeah.
It was sort of Star Trek underwater.
Yeah, it was Star Trek underwater.
There you go.
Yeah, that was basically it with a dolphin that could talk.
I remember that.
Yes, and
So you mean the
Darwin.
gopher from Caddyshack?
Yeah, yeah, the gopher from Caddyshack. Yeah, only it would have been a lot better if Bill Murray had been there and not the kid I wanted to punch in the face every
I'm
episode.
gonna get that dolphin.
So it was Battlestar Galactica underwater.
Yeah, it's Battlestar
Now I got
Galactica
it.
underwater.
But yeah, one thing, since we're bringing it back to Animaniacs, one thing I found out that was really interesting is that they had this segment that I kind of vaguely remember called the Wheel of Morality. Do you recall that, Randy?
It's coming back.
Amazing stories. That was it. It was
Okay.
amazing stories.
Got it. But yeah, so like apparently one of the best recurring segments on the show, Wheel of Morality, was actually created to fill time whenever an episode ran short, which I didn't realize was a thing with animation. I know that, inexplicable things happen and sure things get edited or cut, but still, I didn't really know that was a super common occurrence on animation. But anyway, so like Yakko, Wacko, and Dot would basically spin a wheel, like on Wheel of Fortune, to gain a moral lesson. And that filled the FCC's requirement to always have some sort of moral or educational value in the children's programming.
Well, yeah,
And
that's why G.I. Joe did that, and
Yeah,
You know what? My beef with G.I. Joe doing that? They never
What?
told you what the other half of the battle was.
that is true. Yeah,
You know that
my
knowing
God.
is half the battle. What is the other half?
yeah, because if you just successfully
thought about
complete
it that
half
way.
the battle, you're probably dead.
Right?
Yeah,
true.
Yeah.
But some of the
more you
top-rated
know.
morals that that were learned from Yakko, Wacko, and Dot and the Wheel of Morality were: number 1, vote early and vote often. 2, if it, yeah, I'm dead serious. 2, if at first you don't succeed, blame your parents. 3, don't eat with your mouth full. And 4, people who live in glass houses should get dressed with the lights off. So
That one actually is true. I mean, that one works.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
100% true.
Yeah,
but
that one does work.
that's just one of those subtle jokes that they do on this where, kids are like,
But if I had had the opportunity to pick a second episode, I would have picked the one where they do Yakko's universe, where it is educational.
okay.
I'm using air quotes over
You
over
can't
the
see them,
podcast.
but
No, I mean, but it actually is. But it's like super entertaining. And do either of you know Lauren Collins?
Yeah.
Lauren can do the entire Yakko's universe song just from memory. And in fact, he has a video of him doing it with the guy who played Yakko. I think
Whoa.
it was at Dragon Con.
Really?
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Wow, that's cool. How must that be to be the guy who goes to Dragon Con because of Animaniacs? I mean, I guess it's cool, right?
Well, you'd be surprised because like Tom Kenny, for instance, I was really surprised the guy who does SpongeBob's voice.
He's Tom Kenny's done a lot of
He's
stuff.
all
though.
over the place.
Yeah.
He's Million Ants on Rick
Yeah.
and Morty.
No, Tom
I
Kenny.
had no idea that was Tom Kenny.
Tom Kenny's done a crap load of
And I
things,
know
yeah.
that even if you just look on SpongeBob by itself, he's a quarter of the cast in and of himself, which is pretty commonplace when it comes to animation. But Tom Kenny has been on pretty much every animated anything in the history of the ever.
That's the great thing about being a voice actor. When I've always said that the best job in Hollywood has got to be an established, successful voice actor.
Oh yeah.
Mark Hamill has talked extensively about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Look at Kristen Shaw. Kristen Shaw has been in.
despite the fact that she can't change her voice for anything, and H.
Yeah.
John Benjamin can because he's
just
several
doesn't want
characters.
to.
No, but he's several characters on Bob's Burgers. He's Miss LeBon's.
Oh, yeah.
He's Jimmy
Jimmy
Jr.
Jr.,
Pesto. Yeah, he's a bunch of different people, and so is John Roberts. John Roberts does several characters on that show as well. But with Kristen Shaw, she never changes her voice.
But she doesn't need to.
It somehow fits with each character.
That's the weird thing. Like with John Benjamin, you hear Archer and you hear Bob, and
We've had this discussion before.
Well, slightly, but it's a little different this time because when you hear him do Archer and you hear him do Bob, you go, "Oh, I can't believe it." Yeah, it's the same guy, but it's like
They're
but
so
they're
different,
so
though.
different.
See, that's why I could never get into Bob's Burgers, because I'd watched all of Archer up to that point.
Yeah,
that
and
it
you-
existed, and I went to watch Bob Burgers, and it was like the voice just distracted me the entire time.
You've got to give it a fair shake though, because Bob, Jason's not lying. Bob is such a different character.
It's so weird.
He's such an everyman, and he's such a pushover, and his family
and
bullies
that's coming
everybody
from
bullies
a
him.
diehard Archer fan. I mean, I love Archer.
Oh God, yes.
But with Kristen Shaw, like if you watch Archer and you listen, I mean not Bob's Burgers, and you listen to her playing Louise, and then you watch Gravity Falls, where she plays Mabel,
Or even
Oh my
Archer.
God, Gravity Falls was like the best kid show.
Nope,
in
second best kid show.
Phineas and Ferb.
Yes.
Yeah. Phineas, and
In case you can't tell,
it's coming
listeners,
back.
Randy and Jason are both dads.
They're doing, yeah. Well, but that's one of the best things about having a kid is that you have an excuse to watch
All the shows that you wouldn't be able to watch.
Look, Star Wars Rebels. It's a
Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's Clone. I've spent. We've had my son and I have had many conversations about Clone Wars. Did the best they could with the
What
deck,
they had.
with the hand they were dealt.
Well, where in the narrative that it came?
Right. Yeah. But Rebels was fantastic, and it amazes me that the star of the show was Freddie Prinze Jr.
Of all people.
of all people.
Who? Fred?
Yeah.
Fred from Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Freddie Prinze, a.k.a.
But
Freddy
if you
from Scooby-Doo.
if you listen to Chris, and it's weird for me too because Kristen Shaw was somebody. She's a prolific voice actress, but the first thing I ever saw her in was Flight of the Conchords,
Yeah.
and so she's always going to be Mel.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, to me, she's always Mel. But then she's Louise, she's Mabel, she's
She was on
what's her-
Archer. You kind of corrected
Yeah.
a minute ago, but she was she and
with Gene Herman.
Yeah, Gene Herman were
Merman.
both Eugene Merman.
Merman.
Yeah, you're mixing him up with Edward Herman.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
She
Different
was on
people.
she was on
Ethel
BoJack.
Merman.
Them too.
She was on BoJack playing a very different character on BoJack.
Well, it's funny. It's almost like the animators come in as what really makes her fit, because with H. John Benjamin, somehow he changes his personality regardless of what he sounds like, whereas she doesn't seem to change that much of anything, but
Well,
how
yeah.
she's drawn makes all the
I mean,
difference.
I started.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Yeah, I went back and I started
That's
watching
an allusion to a future episode.
the Venture Brothers from the beginning, because Venture Brothers I loved that show so much, and I totally forgot that John Benjamin was he guest starred on several episodes of that, and he's playing basically himself. But it's so different from everything else that he does. And it's amazing because it's so obviously John Benjamin, but it's like, how the hell can you do this?
So have you ever seen a picture of him, John Benjamin?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that was one of the biggest.
Disappointment.
Disappointments in
I
all
hope
of
he's not.
time and
I
space,
hope he
yes.
never hears.
No, he
this
knows.
He's
He
aware.
knows.
But it was like, I only knew him from Archer, and it's just like, oh, let me just click, and I clicked on it, and I was like, Louis C.K. is John Benjamin.
There was a short that they did. It's on one of the DVDs, which used to be a thing people bought.
They were a
Back in my
futuristic.
day.
There was
Yeah.
a futuristic version of the VHS tape, and then that
Yeah.
went by the wayside too.
Well, on the short though, it's Archer is in a horrible explosion, and he's in the hospital, and the doctor's talking to I think Lana. They're like, well, he's gonna live, but he's been horribly disfigured, and they take the bandages off.
He's
and-
basically knockoff Fiachi at this point.
No, it's they take the bandages off and it's John Benjamin.
Yeah.
And so it's like they show Archer like he's like he can't get stuff off the shelves because he's too short now. And like women are like horrified and running away from him.
Well, it's funny how they modeled the people on Archer, because Jessica Walters and Mallory
Oh, yeah,
Archer look
yeah.
exactly the same. They clearly modeled Jessica Walters
oh yeah.
for that character.
Yeah.
Well, and even when she went to audition for Mallory Archer, she had already been Mrs. Bluth on
Right.
Arrested Development.
Sure.
And she was tickled to death because she went to go read the show notes when she was reading her lines to audition for Archer, and it
Take
said,
me,
"Be like the
Cassius."
mom from Arrested Development." And she was just like, "Oh, okay, so I guess I'm getting this part." And
Yeah.
like it was just gonna happen.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, she's married. She's actually married to Ron in real life. That's
Yeah.
her husband.
Although not-
Rachel Green's dad from Friends. Yeah. but-
Not necessarily though, because I actually found out the other day, and is going to kill me because I can't remember his name. The guy who played Winston on Ghostbusters.
Oh man,
This is going to kill me.
I'll look it up.
Ernie
Hudson?
Yes.
Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
When they were doing the real Ghostbusters, Ernie Hudson was the only member of the cast who said that he was okay being in the show. And they made him audition, and he didn't get the part. And the director of the show apparently had no idea who Ernie Hudson was, and was like, that guy didn't sound anything like Winston.
That is almost as tragic as the time that Charlie Chaplin entered a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest and came in third.
That's awesome.
It's the same vein. That's so terrible.
I would love to do. I mean, to me, that's almost like I'd love to enter a lookalike contest of myself and lose.
Oh, yeah.
Like, who's the person who looks more like me than me?
Well, but I mean, that's exactly what would happen if we had that based on what people saw you through Instagram.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, let's see who looks most like this person on Instagram.
Right.
It's not going to be you.
No.
Well, we don't use filters on our Instagram, so maybe we're making it too easy for people.
Speak for yourself.
Oh, okay. I occasionally do our photos in black and white, but that's really all I do. But
I got a lot of retouching software on that computer over there. I
believe
can, yeah.
But yeah, so one of the things that actually impressed me, bringing it back to Animaniacs, is I learned also that this show had a 35-piece orchestra that went along to do all of their background music, and at least one new piece of music was introduced per episode.
Right.
So I that fascinated me because it's something I never would have noticed as a kid or appreciated,
Right.
let alone. But I just didn't know how much honest to goodness effort went into making it a real genuine variety show.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause
Right.
Yeah.
music is 99.9% of the battle in that case.
You can't have a variety show without music. I mean,
Yeah.
it can't be done. And it's interesting because so much of that talent has been lost because people don't play instruments like they used to. People don't, it's I don't know. I talked to a guy once who he used to play in a band at Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about when they got rid of the band because they didn't want to pay him. And he's like, they didn't, like we were doing it. We told them we'd do it for free, basically. But they just said, oh, it's old fashioned. We don't want it.
Oh.
And then a few years later, probably about 10 years later, they decided, holy crap, we made a huge mistake. We got to bring that back.
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it. They couldn't find people
Who could play the
that
same
could
way.
play it and do the same kind of humor and pull it off like these guys could.
It's a lost art. It's just like how you're always talking about practical effects versus CG.
Yeah.
There's an art to practical effects that people just didn't realize. It wasn't always just a bumbling case of, we're under a time crunch and we got to make this happen. Because like on Ghostbusters, Randy, I don't know if you know this, but when Slimer's spinning around the chandelier, that's just a peanut covered in tempera paint.
Yeah.
That they spun around really quickly, and it just looks like Slimer because it's moving so quickly. And the horse in Wizard of Oz, they painted him with Jell-O to make him that many different colors. Like practical effects just have a whole different wizardry to them.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Well, they do because movies are ultimately photographs of life. And if a practical effect is there, your brain knows. Now, I mean, look, I'm not anti-CG by any means. But
because we couldn't have found real dragons for Game of Thrones, so
well, no, I mean,
I
you
would
could
have worn a dragon suit.
I would have. You know what?
Yeah, but go back and look. There's a documentary from Star Wars to Jedi. That when I was a kid, I loved this documentary, and it was really mainly about the making of Return of the Jedi. The sequence where they talk about how they animated Jabba the Hutt is mind blowing.
Right.
You've got 5 people
Moving,
different aspects of this giant puppet. And I'm thinking, I know it's expensive. I know it's difficult. I know it's tough. But
it's so
God,
worth
it's so
it.
good. I would go to the theater just to see that.
Especially when you think about episode number 4, because when you first see Jabba, he's considerably smaller. He's about Han's height
yeah.
in episode 4, A New Hope. And one of the most difficult challenges they had in that scene where Han first speaks to Jabba about Jabba saying, "You can't just drop my cargo at the first sign of trouble." Han walks on top of
God,
Jabba's
that's so
tail, and
horrible.
Jabba screeches.
It's
But
so horrible.
they had such a rough time because Harrison Ford was literally splicing through the graphic, and they could not make it work to make it look like he was walking behind Jabba. So because that's how it started, is that he was walking behind him, but then they were like, okay, we've got to incorporate that he walks on his tail, because they couldn't really get them split enough to make it work. So it's crazy.
Well, they did that gag where he sort of they digitally made Han Solo go up, like he's walking over.
Yeah, he
the
like
tail.
stepped on a step stool or something
You
behind the actor who was standing in for Jabba.
Yeah, because that was it was a Scottish guy.
Yes.
And Jabba was just a dude.
Yeah, he wasn't standing.
Yeah,
in
he
for
was
Jabba.
just a big guy, like dressed in fur and whatnot. Yeah.
But if you go, excuse me.
How dare you?
Yeah. When they did the special editions, the theatrical release, it's weird because I saw all of those in the theater when they added all the new CG special effects to the original trilogy, and then they released it on video, and you bought it, and it was very interesting. Like, not that many people remember the fact that those were not the same. What got released on VHS, the special editions, were second passes at putting
it was touched up again from the theatrical release.
If you go on YouTube and you look at the original, what was released in the theater with the Han Solo walking over the tail sequence, it is so awful.
Yeah,
it's so
terrible.
awful.
Well, and they even talk about that on the retouched, because they did that really fancy boxing. I remember I got it for Christmas one year. It was a gold box with Darth Vader's countenance on it, and it had all 3 tapes in it, and it was great. But they even talk about it on each of the tapes. There are all those extras where they're talking about the tail thing and Luke's land speeder, how they had to blot out the wheels that were underneath it, and they originally used like petroleum jelly to blot it out on the camera. It's crazy.
Well, and you can get into a whole discussion about that. I watched one of my all-time favorite movies is Marathon Man.
Great movie.
Yeah, and I was watching it with a friend of mine who had never seen it before. And we're watching
the
it
ultimate practical effect, right?
Which one?
The one where Dustin Hoffman actually got a root canal without anesthesia.
Yeah.
So he would know what it felt like when.
Yeah. And
God, my dear boy, why don't you simply try acting?
It's easier. But there's a part in the movie, and when I've shown it to my friend, we're watching it. He's never seen it. We're watching it on a modern TV. We're sitting 6 feet away from the TV. And there's a part in the movie where Roy Scheider's character, somebody comes up behind him and they're going to garrote Roy Scheider. So they throw the thing over his head, and before they can choke him, he puts his hand up.
Right.
So the wire catches on his hand.
Sure.
And in the scene is, it's supposed to look like the garrote is cutting Roy Scheider's hand and he's bleeding. And it's very obvious that there's a tube taped to Roy Scheider's hand and it's covered in makeup.
The old Saturday Night Live vomit trick.
Yeah. Well,
even just to more...
But my point was that my friend couldn't, he was like, that looks so terrible. That looks so terrible.
Yeah, but you have that nostalgic, that first impression of what it felt like when you first saw it.
Well, I'm like, you got to remember when people saw this in the theater, they were in a theater watching it on a 35 millimeter print from, 30 feet away from the screen. It's not, you can't judge it based on
what you're watching.
Yeah, you're watching an HD transfer on a 55-inch LED TV.
The idea that people would be watching this on their TVs at home was not really...
was unfathomable.
Yeah.
Well, it was not unfathomable. It might have been syndicated one day in like the local...
Right,
They might have been showing it at 1 o'clock in the morning or something.
Got it. Okay.
But the idea that you'd have like some sort of recording of it in your house would have been enough to get the copyright people...
Well, we talked about that with It. That all the things you criticize when you're watching this TV movie, but the reality is they weren't thinking about subsequent viewing. They just wanted you to tune in
Well, that's the
watch
magic.
it from beginning to end.
So I could sell some ads.
Yeah, and sell some ads.
Yeah, that's
was
the
it,
magic
yeah.
of this podcast is that we can go back and sort of cash in on that classic
Right, exactly.
notion.
Yeah.
We get even today I'll go back on Netflix and watch old episodes of Friends because you go back and watch the first 2 seasons.
Oh, the special
of Friends and
effects
they're
are terrible.
the explosions, the lasers. No, but just even the quality of the film.
Lisa
you see
Kudrow's beard, you can see it underneath the makeup. It's awful. I mean,
they actually changed Jennifer Aniston's nose in later digitized versions.
Yeah.
But that was an actual thing that happened in real life. But no, but you go back and you see, and it's not something that I noticed when it first would have been on television back in the 90s, but it's all grainy on Netflix now because it's just not the same quality.
That's right.
And it to me, that doesn't even bug me because my cousin's kid, she loves to come and stay with me and she'll watch old shows like that with me. And she's, old shows, she's like 16. So that to her, Friends is ancient.
yeah, to her,
and
yeah.
she had never seen Zoolander, which I
When-
quickly corrected. But
when did Friends go off the air?
early
Yeah.
either 99 or like 2000.
Was it in the 2000s?
I think it was actually 1999.
So she was born after Friends went off the air.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah.
So was her brother. So
Yeah.
that to them that show is ancient.
So
Where-
Friends to her is like Rhoda to me.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Mama's Family.
There you go.
I love Mama's Family.
Well, and that's what's funny is that like I was such a weird kid growing up because we've talked about the Nick at Night block so many times. I'd come in and want to talk about watching The Wonder Years and Dick Van Dyke, and my friends were like, "What the hell are you watching? Like what are these shows you're talking about?" And they're watching Friends and they're watching Frasier and all this other current stuff, and I just wasn't into the current stuff
Well,
yet.
but and that serves to prove the point that I've always said that good comedy is good comedy. Good
Oh, yeah, it's
drama is
timeless.
good drama. I remember as a kid, same as you, I was watching Nick at Night because it was really cool. We got Nick at Night. I remember when, the cable company, our local cable company.
Oh no! Sorry to interrupt you, Jason.
No, go ahead.
Friends went off in 2004. It didn't even feel that late to me. Yeah,
2004?
94 to 2004 because it was on for 10 years. So
Friends went off the air in 2004?
yeah,
3 years into the Bush administration? Or 4 years in?
mm-hmm.
Wow.
Correct.
I
I know
feel-
that just derailed your whole train of thought.
I feel somehow even older now. I don't know why.
Yeah, because we talked about that I think with Night Court, where Night Court lasted until what 92.
Yeah.
And
Night Court is awesome.
Yeah. Night Court is...
we may have to revisit Night Court with Randy and see if he
Oh.
wants to do another episode with
I-
you. But
I-
that was a fun show to talk
I
about.
could sit and just watch Night Court because again, there are some shows, Alf, that
God.
don't at all hold up.
Well, yeah, let's get back into that because we haven't really gotten to our Alf to Seinfeld
yeah,
scale.
well, because we haven't watched the show in a while.
No, that's
Yeah.
true. So, Randy, one thing that we introduced, I know you've listened to some of our shows, but maybe not the first one on Rocco, for instance, where we introduced this trademarked scale that we invented, where it's called
Elon Musk.
Yeah, deal with it. We basically said that there are two polar opposites on this scale, and you can rate something on a level of Alf to Seinfeld. And the way that it works is Alf is on the bottom, and the reason why that is because it and Seinfeld are the exact opposite in the sense that when we were kids, Alf seemed amazing.
Oh, it was hilarious.
Then you become an adult, and you're like, oh my god, this is the most terrible show that's ever happened anywhere. Whereas with Seinfeld, my example of that was Seinfeld when I was a kid felt like when you're at the grocery store with your mom and she runs into her best friend and they talk for 45 minutes and you feel like you're dying a slow, horrible death because you're like, when are we going to go home? That's what Seinfeld felt to me like as a kid. But then when I grew up, I was like, oh my God, Seinfeld is the most brilliant thing I've ever watched in my entire life.
Yeah.
So you can sort of rate things on a level of Alf to Seinfeld. So
Have we come up with something that's like in the middle?
yeah. Well, I think something landed straight in the middle.
I'm trying to remember if we did, if something was like, what's right in the middle? What kind of holds
I'm gonna
up?
look
Kind
it
of
up
doesn't,
because we said that it was one of our particular things that we discussed.
I'm
that
gonna
landed
need to
right
do
in
a
the middle.
graphic. I'm gonna come up with a graphic we can start adding to our blog posts.
Oh, absolutely. I'd say
If
Lethal
you're
Weapon wound up on the.
If you're
upper
going
end
to
of
do
the-
that, you need a y-axis to go along with it.
Okay.
Nudity? I don't. TV back then.
I think you said, Jason, that that Night Court kind of landed exactly in the middle because it's
yes,
still campy and it's
yes.
complete nonsense.
Yeah.
But it's still so funny, and the jokes, like you remember it for the stories, like the little kid with the mirrors on his shoes and
Yeah.
stuff from when you were younger, but you don't really remember.
But when I was
it
a
for the
kid,
dirty
I had no
humor.
idea why did he have mirrors on his shoes?
All right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
First of all, I completely remember it for the dirty humor. Second of all, as a lawyer,
Dan Fielding.
it is the most realistic courtroom drama of.
No, he's right.
Seriously?
No, he's absolutely right.
Well, see, that's really funny because
Yeah.
I remember my dad got frustrated. He runs the Recreation and Parks
Oh my
Department.
God, we've
and,
got 2 lawyers and a non-lawyer. This is the first time we've tipped the balance.
That's true. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it out there. No, but going back to your point,
don't
Randy, about how
practice.
that's an accurate portrayal of court. My dad got frustrated once because somebody compared him to Ron Swanson because he runs the Recreation and Parks Department, and he goes, saying Parks and Recreation is what it's like to run the Recreation and Parks Department is like saying Scrubs is what it's like to run a hospital.
Yeah.
And meanwhile,
Yeah.
I've got several friends who are nurses, and I was like, okay, Grey's Anatomy, Scrubs. Like, what are we talking? What's it more like? And they were like, it's really like Scrubs.
You know, if you love Scrubs, there is a
I do
British
love Scrubs.
show you may have heard of called Green Wing. Green Wing is an absolute must-watch for you.
I'm going to jump
not
in
heard
here.
of
Have you guys seen my Ron Swanson picture?
Oh no, I must. Oh my God, Randy. This is going in the show notes. I hope you realize
Holy
this.
shit.
I'm tweeting this to Nick Offerman. It's a thing. Because I don't think I've told you this story. I actually got to meet Nick Offerman.
Interesting.
Yes, he and Megan Mullally called, what do we call him on the show? Grand Moff Tarkin, I think you said. And Josh and I got called up on stage at the Megan Mullally Nick
we call
Offerman
him Josh.
show. Yeah. No, you just said that because
Yeah.
of the whole dark, but now everybody knows my real name anyway,
Yeah,
so it doesn't
yeah.
matter. Yeah, but they called us up on stage to play literally the dirtiest version of the Newlyweds Game I've ever seen in my life. It was fun.
You should watch Cinemax. No.
No, but they called us up, and one of the more innocent questions was,
They call it whoopee.
one of the more innocent questions they asked us was, and we had to write all of our answers on a little, marker board and hold them up for the audience. But they were like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much PCP are you on right now? So it just got rougher from there. So yeah, that is the most Ron Swanson looking picture I've ever seen, Randy. That's impressive.
I think you need to do some Dragon Con.
I was going to tell you this.
Yeah.
My idea for Dragon Con this year.
Okay.
Gail from Bob's Burgers. Get myself some purple
Okay.
glasses.
If you do that, because
She will dress up as Bob.
okay, Tina, my son,
David's going to be Tina.
he's going to be Tina.
Genius.
David, come here. Come here. It's my. Give us a little bit of your Tina.
Well done, David.
Tina.
David, everyone.
If you do that, we might do the Bob's Burgers because I was.
I'm in. I'll do the voice. I am in.
Because we were actually gonna like swap it around, and I was gonna be Linda, and Elaine was gonna be Bob, and then he was gonna be Tina, and just.
Who are Louise and Jane?
Well, we don't have people for them.
Okay.
That's the problem. I didn't have enough children to do the whole thing.
They're always
yeah.
Josh would be a really good Bob. He's got.
He could be Bob.
He's got the whole beard and everything going on. But
I could be Randy.
Randy.
Randy, the filmmaker.
Oh, the documentarian guy.
The documentarian
yeah, okay.
who hates Dad.
I see.
Werner
Of all the people, I'm
Herzog?
surprised that you don't want to be Teddy. I know he's your favorite.
Oh, I love Teddy. I could be Teddy.
Hey, Barbie.
It's Teddy from your dad's restaurant.
Yeah, Teddy. I know who it is.
No, actually, I am kind of committing this year. I've said it for too long, and I actually had a dream about it the other night, and I said, you know what? That's the universe telling me I got to do it.
It's the closest you'll ever come to feeling like an honest to God celebrity.
Yeah.
People run up to you and like ask to take your photo.
Yeah.
I remember I was
Cosplay is not consent. Remember that, folks.
No, it's not. That's an important rule. But yeah, there was one year where I was dressed up like the TARDIS, and I was hanging out with this guy who is a dead ringer for Matt Smith, and was dressed up like Doctor Who number 11. And people were running up to us wanting to take our picture and just flipping out. And I was just, this is what celebrities must feel like on a regular basis.
See,
But yeah, I'll do Gail.
The $64,000 question.
See,
Did you let him inside you?
Oh God.
I'm not
you
gonna.
know your
I'm
house,
not. I'm
right?
not. You realize there's another joke that goes right along with that.
You know,
about,
no, I'm going to segue
is
into
it
something
bigger?
more innocent.
Is it bigger?
It's
on
bigger on the inside.
Yeah. No. Oh.
Did you park the TARDIS on the meter?
Hey, we are not going to do that joke. There. See? Clean show. Not explicit, Apple. No, see, I was going to do Kolchak.
Okay.
But the problem is, if I went as Kolchak, no one would run up to me and want to take my picture because nobody would know who he is.
Fair enough.
We should do, you go as Gale, we'll do,
I'll be Gale.
let's do a whole crew.
Hell yeah.
And let's get as many, I mean,
I think you should be Teddy.
I'll be Teddy.
You'd be such a good Teddy.
but let's, and Josh can be Bob.
Yeah.
And let's do the whole thing, and let's get like the show.
Well, because you see,
All of us, the whole cast of Bob's Burgers.
See, that's what's going to set us above and beyond. Is honestly, you see a lot of the Belcher family. You might see some Bob and Linda's together. You might see just the Belcher children. You might see the whole 5 if you're lucky. But honestly, nobody. I've never seen a Gale. I've never seen a Teddy or a Mort or anybody like that. So
who could be Mort? You want to be Mort? Oh, you don't watch Bob's Burgers. You don't watch Bob.
No,
and we'll
brainstorm on this, listeners.
Yeah. Hey, if anyone in the, not even in the Atlanta area, if anybody wants to be, we need Louise.
We need Jean.
Mr. Fisher. I actually,
Josh's sister might want to go as Louise.
I want to be. I actually would rather be Mr. Fishoder.
Oh my God, you'd be such a good supervillain in the
I would
white
love
suit with
to
the
be
eye
Mr.
patch.
Fishoder.
We need to get you like a little cardboard go kart.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well,
Oh, Bob.
Oh, paying your rent? What comes next? Paying your other bills?
So you didn't call me here to pay your rent?
Are they choke resistant? I love the
Hit him in the crotch.
I love the fog underneath my cape. But you'd have to remember all of his weird sayings.
Oh
That's
my
the
God.
thing about Mr. Fish.
I was in a restroom at the concert I went to last weekend, and I walk in, and I swear to God, there was, we're waiting in line, because there's, 78 million people go see a show, and they have 3 urinals. And we're waiting in line, and I'm standing there, and there's this old dude peeing, and I realize he's got both hands on his hips, and he is.
Are you not holding up your?
He was just standing there, just saying, you know what?
My wonder dog stands up on its own.
Yeah. And it's almost like he wanted to look around and go, yeah, everybody can kiss my ass.
Oh my God.
I'm not holding
The things men see in restaurants, I can't even imagine, because we don't have that kind of stuff going on.
We see nothing.
Yeah, we see. That's
Oh,
exactly
it's
right.
that dad
down.
movie policy.
Yeah.
We
Just-
look down.
Yeah.
We look at our feet.
Yeah, that's why it's so weird for there to be a line at the men's room, because you're like, what do we do? Do we talk? I don't want to talk.
Oh my God, there's a trough.
The trough.
As long as there's ice in it, I hear that's part of the calculus with that.
Well, the only reason that there's ice in urinal troughs or in urinals is so that they can make it. Well, no, it's so that there can be a job for a guy where your job is putting ice in the urinals. So that's the only reason that exists.
So for all the non-parents out there, one of the strategies that you're supposed to use to get your son to aim correctly
Is to melt the ice.
is to put Cheerios into
Oh
the
yeah,
toilet.
aim at it.
And they can aim at the Cheerios.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do I? Oh my God!
It's like playing a video game.
Yeah. I still do that. I go to take a pee, I drop some Cheerios in there and just. Or it's sort of like when you're a guy. Okay.
Jason's son isn't in the studio with us or anything, gang. It's cool.
No, it's like when you're a guy and you go to a public restroom.
Just gonna stare
to
at
like
my
a
notes.
urinal, and there's something stuck. Like there's something in the urinal, like a piece of
You're
gum
trying
or
to
something.
displace it.
And it's like, I wonder if I can get it. And then you don't. You go, I'm going to go drink a bunch of water and come back.
See, that amazes me because as far as I can tell, men don't typically take as long in the restroom as women, and that's.
You
I'm guessing
think?
it's. Well, no,
That's
no, but
because-
with that game,
That's
I'm
because
amazed.
we take the machine gun approach and like try to get as much out
Like
as
at a
fast as
carnival?
possible.
God.
Because you do as a guy, you have those situations where you're in a hurry, so you've got to like squeeze. And you're like, come on, I can shave 2 seconds off this.
I don't even know. The point of that was like that. To that end, men should take longer in the restroom if y'all are that easily distracted. I mean, women are going in. Yeah, we're doing our makeup, fixing our hair, whatever the hell we're doing, but we're not carnival gaming anything.
Well,
as far as I'm aware.
Then what the hell are you doing in
Fixing
there?
our hair and makeup, like we're refreshing our lipstick. We're most of the time that a woman spends in the bathroom, as far as I'm aware, is in front of a mirror. That's what it is.
I've taken an extra 2 or 3 seconds in a bathroom when the bar
Make sure you're not bleeding from the head or something.
Well, yeah. Well, you do have to make sure you're all tucked in.
Your wonder dog
tucked
is
in,
back in
zipped
its
up.
crotch.
Yeah. You don't want the wonder dog coming out. No.
Jade has thrown down the glasses.
It's not. Sadly, it's not the first time
No,
it's
it
happened.
isn't. No, it really isn't.
God.
The first time the Wonder Dog has escaped, or the first time you've thrown
Yeah.
down the glasses?
Either. God.
Baby Jesus isn't in the manger. What? Oh. That's a nod for you, Venture Brothers fans.
Well, this is the first time it's gone on to male anatomy to this extent, so I'm kind of victorious in a way.
That is true. Yeah.
When we've had past male guests, you know who you are.
Because your name is Adam.
It's always come
And
down
you're in
to
a
female
Shakespeare
anatomy.
show.
Yeah, and you were in Shakespeare.
So that narrows it down pretty hard. But yeah, it's always come down to female anatomy.
Well,
But
I'm happy I can bring the male anatomy to the show.
Yes.
yes, thank you, Randy, for empowering women everywhere. We appreciate that.
Wait, what?
No, because now for once we're objectifying men instead of women.
I read an article recently. I'm just gonna have to throw this out there. So
Go
it's
for it.
fascinating
Please
about
do
Go for
change
it.
the
Go
damn
for it.
subject.
about how the woman the movie that more so than any other encapsulated the female gaze, like almost every Hollywood movie does
what?
for the male gaze.
Oh, with a Z.
Yes, yes, with a Z. The male
Shaking my
gaze,
head.
the female gaze, but the movie that encapsulates the female gaze is Brendan Fraser's George of the Jungle.
I mean, that's not the most
Really?
inaccurate
Oh.
thing. Well,
Because
think about
he's
how
dumb.
stacked he
Yeah.
was in
He
that.
was
Yeah.
jacked up, and it was like all the women just completely admired his physical beauty.
Yeah. And
See, I was
completely-
too young for that to have affected me that way back then. But yeah, I mean, if I watched it now, I'd probably be like, oh, there's Brendan Fraser. Okay. What's going on, monkeys? Yeah, I don't care. There you go.
yeah, but I don't know. See, I mean,
Well, it's like the
to
mask.
me, it would feel weird because I think of Brendan Fraser like most people think of Brendan Fraser. It would just feel weird to
Encino
be.
Man.
Yeah, it would feel weird to go, I'm really attracted to Brendan Fraser. Not that it's a gay thing, but it's Brendan Fraser.
I don't know. But I think what Randy's saying is it's kind of like how when we were discussing The Mask, you were like, oh yeah, we did a movie with Cameron Diaz. That's really all I remember about it, though. And I
Yes.
was like, yeah, forget the dog and Jim Carrey and all the other special effects.
I know you keep talking about like there was other stuff.
Cameron
in that
Diaz
movie.
was there,
I-
like Jessica
there was-
Damn Rabbit.
There was a dress with Cameron Diaz in it.
Yeah.
And
But it was pre-potential Cameron Diaz.
yes, yeah, it was.
No, but it was still like va voom Cameron Diaz as
Oh, yeah.
opposed to
Yeah,
like
yeah,
But
real
it,
skinny Cameron Diaz.
it was not Charlie's Angels.
No,
Cameron Diaz.
no,
No, it wasn't. She wasn't a blockbuster. No, because that was a story we shared on that episode. Is the fact that
It wasn't
the
even something
director-
about Mary.
Yeah.
Cameron Diaz.
No, she wasn't famous at all. She was literally an aspiring model, and the director of the movie apparently saw her walking out of an agency.
I know, it's so creepy.
And he was like, I was like, with what, binoculars?
You want to be in a movie?
Come on, Georgie. We've got Jim Carrey and a Jack Russell Terrier down here in the sewer. You want to be famous?
I got a dog I want you to meet, and there's also this Jack Russell.
It's a wonder dog.
But don't worry, Jim Carrey's in it, but he's gonna wear a mask the entire
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Anything
no, so
else?
it's total-
No, just the mask. But yeah, Alicia
Alrighty
Silverstone. We've got the whole Babes of Hindsight is horrifying because Jason. This is just one of the many reasons why you're here, Randy. Because Jason needed more boys to play with. There were too many women on the show, so we had to correct that.
Well, because we watch.
So-
Look, when you watch Clueless, and all you're talking about are the dresses, it's like.
and Paul Rudd.
And
Thank
Paul
you very
Rudd,
much.
yeah,
So-
and Ant-Man, yeah.
But to kind of back up there for just a second, and we're talking about women who were like, just were like the cat's pajamas.
Cat's pajamas.
The dog's tuxedo.
Back in the day, who is now playing Aunt May in Spider-Man movies,
Yes.
Marissa Tomei.
Oh, Marissa Tomei.
Oh, and but linking
Forget
that back
about
to
it.
Dragon Con, I saw the best Dragon Con outfit ever with
hope it
Marissa
was-
Tomei.
From My Cousin Vinny?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
No,
Yes.
no, no. I
Yeah,
do too.
yeah,
But
yeah.
no, the best costume ever at Dragon Con. She was dressed up like a mourning, somebody in mourning at a funeral, and she was carrying a jar of ashes around, and it said, "Mr. Stark, why did you let my nephew go?"
Eh.
And I was just like, "That's amazing."
You know what
But-
movie we need to do, and this is a
Do tell.
movie
The
that,
Birdcage.
well, we definitely.
I've been preaching about that for
no,
Like
we
episodes
got to
on
do
it.
the break.
The American version or the French version?
the American version.
Yeah, I mean, I like them both.
We can talk about both of them.
Yeah,
but
we could do both of them the
Nathan
same.
Lane and Robin Williams.
Here's the thing. If you go back to movies from the 80s
Mm-hmm.
that, as a young man, had a particular impact on you that the screenwriters might not have intended.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do either of you remember the movie Career Opportunities
I remember
with Jennifer Connelly?
hearing about it, but
a
no,
very
I never saw it.
a 18 or 19-year-old Jennifer Connelly.
Okay.
It's not ringing a bell.
Okay, it's I think it's a John Hughes movie, but it sort of fell through the cracks. Like nobody remembers it. The
How is
plot-
it a John Hughes movie if she's not in high school?
Because Molly Ringwald
Well,
wasn't in it.
because I think the guy who was the star, he was in high school.
Ah.
And the plot it's totally absurd. It was this guy gets a job working at this mystical, magical place called Target. Because that was back when Target was like, what the hell is Target? You know, literally, it was a big deal. It was like, what, Target? That's a real store.
Target is still mystical.
Yeah.
You don't go to Target with a shopping list.
Look,
you go to
it's
Target
like
and it
a
tells you
fancy
what
Walmart.
you need.
Yeah, we had a Target growing up, and people used to actually come from other states to go to Target.
Yeah.
It was
It was the IKEA of the
Yeah.
80s.
But he is a security guard at Target, and Jennifer Connelly is a rich girl who decides that she's just going to go and she's going to shoplift something or something like that. And she goes in and she ends up being trapped overnight in Target with the guy who is the star of the movie and two bad guys.
Okay.
It's the 80s, man.
That actually sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, you've
something
probably seen it.
Something
There is
similar
a
happened.
scene with Jennifer Connelly. Do you remember as a kid when you would go to like Walmart or something like that, and they had the thing you could put the coin in, and it was a horse, and the horse would just sort of
Yeah, the horse ride.
the horse ride.
Yeah.
Jennifer Connelly, white tank top, horse ride.
Oh, for the love of God.
Watch the movie.
Still no Phoebe
He's pointing
Cates.
at Randy right now, listeners, not me. I can't imagine why.
I would challenge that. You got to watch this scene.
Still no
man.
Phoebe Cates.
Well, Phoebe.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh yeah, that was.
Or even Caddyshack, what's her face, walking to the pool, the niece or granddaughter or whatever, in the high heels. And the
Lacy
black...
underalls.
Yeah.
That was
Such a great name. Who hooks up with Chevy Chase of all people? Good God. But yeah, and see, I'm even trying to think about like back to they don't really do that for men in Hollywood, Randy, because you're saying like the George of the Jungle thing.
Right.
That was the first sort of nonsensical movie that women could just go and enjoy something and be like, oh, hi, Brendan Fraser, and just not pay attention to anything else.
See,
that was
not
happening.
not only was it just a purely physical thing, but in addition to that, this article made the point was that he was a completely non-threatening male entity.
Yeah.
Yes.
On top of like having this incredible physique.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does make a big difference because you can sort of turn off that. Oh, is he a predator radar? And then just actually enjoy looking at a guy.
I mean, he lived in
Which
the
women
jungle.
honestly don't
He
get to do.
He grew up in the jungle without any supervision, so he probably is a predator.
I was about to say, like,
Yeah, he would in
it doesn't make any
reality
sense,
he would be
but-
more like Christopher Lambert from Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan.
Oh my God, the
I know.
best Tarzan
Yes,
ever.
the best Tarzan that was ever made.
as opposed to one of the worst Tarzans that was ever made with the love of my life, Alexander Skarsgård.
Yeah,
But-
pass it over.
But
But they did a good job with that same idea of making him a non-threatening entity in the Skarsgård version because when Margot Robbie, she's wandering deep into the jungle and then one of the apes attacks her and Alexander Skarsgård just like shields her with his body. And it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, he's very strong and he can protect her and whatnot, but he's not threatening to her
Right.
specific. Like, it's funny how
well,
with
then
women they have
wouldn't
to
women
configure
really?
specific.
Wouldn't women really be attracted to Arnold in Terminator 2? Because he's he's gonna protect you.
Only John Connor. John Connor was a woman.
Well, that's true. Yeah, he's gonna let
You
got to
get you a man who can do both.
That's
He
true.
understands
he's
your
gonna let
feelings,
everybody.
too.
Yeah.
Come with me if you want to live. That's the extent of the emotional
Aren't
context.
those women's feelings? I thought that's what they were.
Hasta la vista,
Baby. He called me baby. He so likes me.
Oh my god.
We're going to last forever, you guys. I'm going to write
I
his
would
name in
totally
my binder.
die in that jacket.
in your trapper keeper.
in my Lisa Frank
everybody.
notebook.
By the way, I've gone the entire episode and not made one single.
You have?
I
Yeah,
have
I was
not
proud.
gone. Randy, everybody.
He's giving you a look like he doesn't know what the hell you're talking about. So why don't you explain it a little
you
bit?
know exactly what I'm talking about. From South Park. Oh,
See?
everybody.
So I've gone. My name being what it is, I've gone through several iterations. In the 80s, it was Randy Savage.
Oh, I love it. Like
Awesome.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Awesome.
In the late 80s, early 90s, it was Randy of the Redwoods.
All right.
Kind of Twin Peaks ish. James, David Lynch. Yeah.
Well, no, Randy of the Redwoods was like MTV character.
Oh shit.
I don't recall
Sorry.
this.
Yeah.
And so it has always carried with it. The brief period in which I lived in England, I completely changed my name because it just doesn't work in England. When you
Raymond
walk up,
Luxury.
when you walk up to a woman and say, "Hi, I'm Randy."
And that is so my bag,
I
baby.
know you are, but you're gonna have to buy me a drink first.
So my name was John when I lived in England.
Okay. Is that your
you,
middle name?
you really
First
spent a
name.
long time
Okay.
thinking about that. Yeah.
No, I learned that very quickly.
So wait, your first name is John,
yes,
and your middle name is.
Randolph.
I would totally always. I'm John Randolph. Sa.
When I become a professional novelist, I will be J. Randolph.
Yes. You forget yourself, sir.
Do you know who I am? Yeah, well, oddly enough, my name has gone through its own variations, but not through my own machinations, unfortunately. Growing up, my family came up with the brilliant rhyming scheme of Jader Tater.
Yeah.
So that was one of them.
See, when your name is Jason, it's such a milquetoast name to begin with. Nobody can come up with anything.
And then in the 90s, when you were in that girl band, it was Jade.
Yes.
Nice. Yeah.
Well,
put the accent mark on it.
It's just Jade. It's a mononym. But no, then it was cool to be Jade because of Mortal Kombat. That one of the chicks, she had like fans or daggers or something. I can't remember which. But
She had
either way.
boobs, I think.
Is
That's
that
what
what
that's
the
what I
allure
recall.
was?
That's
okay,
what I remember.
Got it. But yeah, Darth Jader came in my restaurant years in college. That was. I mean, how much have you had to drink?
No, it's just phrasing.
Boom, phrasing first.
Is that still a thing?
We got to put it back in our conversations, guys. When are we going to reincorporate phrasing?
Are we seriously not doing phrasing anymore?
Phrasing first, boom. Pam.
So you were talking about.
No, I was given that name, and I don't know, my name is morphed, but not because of where I've been or any decisions I've made. People have just sort of slapped me with nicknames. over
Well,
the
see,
years.
I've always been the person who showed up in every single social situation in my life, school, everything, where there's already been an established Jason, and
There is always already an established Jason.
yeah, there's always so.
That only happened to me once. I actually bartended for a time at Henry's Louisiana Grill out in Ackworth, and the guy who owns that place, his actual name is Henry. He's from Louisiana, so all the food is like really
Is that
authentic.
still open?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Holy crap! I gotta go there.
Oh,
I'm from Louisiana. I would kill. For
You haven't
proper-
been? Oh yeah, we're taking you on a lane. It's going.
Awesome.
We're going. Anyway, I bartended there for a while, and one of the things that was really funny is that they already had a Jade. So she was a hostess, and they were like, "You got to be something else." I was like, "Well, what about JR?" And they're like, "Yeah, that works." So I was JR, and Henry, the chef, comes in the morning, and
Who
he's
shot
got-
Jr.?
No, that's oh my god, that's it. You just ruined the punchline of my story.
did?
Yes,
Oh,
because
shit.
he walks in, and I'm opening the bar. It's 10 a.m. and he always wanted espresso with Trivia sweetener, and then he wanted like sparkling cranberry juice, and he was very particular about his beverages in the morning. So he was like, "JD, I need my beverages." And I was like, "It's JR, chef." And he goes, "Who shot JR?" And that's how he remembered who the hell I was.
There you go.
So,
you know, you made a memory.
It's a thing.
See, but I've always been Mitchell. which
Okay.
used to annoy the crap out of me until I realized that my grandfather, who I hugely respected,
Was also Mitchell.
he was always Mitchell.
Nice.
And then I saw the movie Mitchell, starring Joe Don Baker,
There you
and it
go.
was the coolest thing. And I'm like, yeah, Mitchell.
I'm here for it.
Even his name sounds like, is that a beer?
Do you all remember the Uma Thurman movie Jennifer 8?
Yes.
I do not.
Yes.
Well, that inspired the gentleman I went to high school with and myself, because we knew so many Jennifers. We said, "Aha! We shall number them."
I think Jennifer should be numbered.
Gen
I,
1,
I think in
Gen
fairness,
2, Gen 3.
you know, I've known a lot of Jennifers, and it's interesting you bring this up. And I've actually come to the conclusion that every Jennifer in the world is crazy. Every Jennifer I've
You just
ever...
called our Don Pedro crazy. Oh no, Jessica. Sorry, sorry. Nope.
Nope,
My bad.
I
I
did
messed
not.
up. I
No,
messed
I
up.
did not,
Sorry.
yeah.
Darth Jader messed up. My
Yep.
bad.
Yeah. Every Jennifer I've ever known has been batshit, all the way, balls to the wall, crazy. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe it's in the name.
I'm starting to wonder if it's you, because I've never had any issues with Jennifer's.
I don't know. I've dated a few Jennifers, all crazy.
I've never dated a
totally
Jennifer,
crazy.
oddly enough.
Yeah,
But you know.
So how do the Jennifers typically that you have dated compare to the women not who are named Jennifer?
Oh, far crazier.
Okay.
Yeah, far crazier.
So you actually have a
Oh, there's a scale.
He's got a scale for literally everything.
It's something I do. Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of scales, we've gone back to the Alf and Seinfeld scale, Randy, so we've introduced you to that concept. Another scale that Jason has introduced with his other friend Adam, which who's just Adam and who's the other Adam? We'll figure that out later.
Yeah.
Anyway, middle-aged Adam, I think is his current label.
Yeah.
Is
LJ.
Sure, there you go.
Yeah, Mr. LJ.
Mr. LJ. He and Jason came up with, why don't you tell Randy about it, Jason, since it's your invention?
Oh, the jelly scale. Yeah.
Yes.
We quantify jealousy. We wanted to come up with a standard unit to measure jealousy. And what we came up with is the jelly. And one jelly is the amount of jealousy that a person feels when they're at a restaurant with a friend. Mm-hmm. Imagine you're at a restaurant and you're debating between two different entrees. And you pick entree A. Your friend picks entree B. When both entrees are put down at the table, you look at entree B and you go, I should have gotten entree B. I'm jealous. That is one jelly.
One jelly.
That is precisely one jelly.
but see that's on a scale. That's just a unit of measure.
Well, that's the unit, and then the...
Well, I've asked for comparisons because I was trying to grasp that myself, and I was like, "Well, what is the ultimate amount of jellies? Like spousal murder?"
Well-
and he was like, "Nah, just
Damn.
shrug that one off." No, you said that.
Well, we tried to come up with the jelly equivalent of like water boiling, because like Celsius.
Sure.
Okay, so it's 0, 100 is water boiling.
At
0 is
211 degrees, water steams. At 212, water boils.
Yeah. And 213, it dances. Damn. So the question is, what is the jealousy equivalent of water boiling? And trying to do that in a way that doesn't involve, whoopee is...
Same as Stanley Nichols to Shroot Bucks.
I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say what is the
Different
100
conversion rate.
Yeah, what is the
No,
100 level
I mean,
of jelly?
So it sounds like any other unit of measurement. Like you can't have a cap to it.
No, you can keep going. Yeah. I mean, I saw something the other day that blew me away. The temperature at the inside of the sun, okay? If you heated a grain of sand to the temperature that exists at the inside of the sun, it would kill everyone within 150 kilometers.
Okay.
I don't know. So, yeah, there's... Yeah.
How jealous have you felt in your lifetime?
That
Are we
is-
talking like
yeah.
a piece of kosher salt or table salt?
No,
Oh,
sand.
jeez.
Not salt, sand.
Oh, sorry.
Sand.
Yeah, schooled your ass. Because this is all hypothetical anyway.
Yeah.
No, but y'all are getting into such detail
Okay,
with this.
but so I don't know what is the boiling point of jealousy.
Animaniacs escaping from the WB tower.
No, because I'm not jealous.
I'm just trying
of
to
it.
bring it back to the damn
But
show.
no, but maybe the boiling point of jealousy is like being a prisoner and seeing somebody who's not a prisoner.
being
See,
I still think sex would be more interesting.
the inherent problem though with that is that it's going to be
Well.
a subjective test, right?
Well, that's what
Because-
we're trying to do. We're trying to objectify.
Especially if we
But see,
start
you
comparing
won't,
it.
you won't be
Yeah.
able to make it an objective test because we're dealing with,
Nope.
with human behavior. And so it may very well be the guy who chose wrong at the restaurant, that's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, that is true.
And so
and you
in
have your
that
machine
case,
gun Joes of the world who get
Yeah,
tipped
the
off for
machine-
no
machine gun
reason.
show, and he just slapped his girlfriend.
in that
No
case,
punches her.
yeah, punches her. Yeah,
it's literally like 1, 2, 3 bites to the inside of the Tootsie Pop, right?
The world may never know.
God, I love that commercial.
Well, and it's only going to get trickier if you start comparing it to sex because God knows men and women can't agree on comparative measures in that category.
No.
So,
No.
Yeah, like I would say
Well,
just keep it to
I would
something more
I would
definitive.
argue that we could, but women just won't admit it.
This is true.
We're just
Well, it's
more,
like I told
we're
you a
more
long
vocal
time ago.
about it. Come on.
Yeah, well, and
I've seen Sex in the City.
God. But it's like I told you a long time ago, like when we became friends. Women never admit anything, especially when they start liking you. They actually just start talking to you every day and making sure that you're not hungry.
Right.
Like women
Yeah.
won't admit anything; they just start acting differently.
Yeah.
That's
No,
all.
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
But
In fact, when I was in college, I came up with an idea of a card that you would when you went on your first date.
oh, actually, hold on, guys. In case you didn't hear that rattling of a can, because we forgot to mention this on Adam Darby's second episode.
That's true. We did.
So let's take a second and talk about our very favorite brewing company.
Variant Brewing.
Variant Brewing. We're coming up with
They
a jingle
make
for you guys.
beer.
It's probably going to have a John Cougar Mellencamp feel to it, as per our last episode. But yeah, so tonight, Randy and I are partaking in the beer, and I have gone back to my ever favorite raspberry lemon goza. Randy, what are you drinking tonight?
Ridiculous thoughts.
Heck yes, we're both enjoying delicious gozas from Variant Brewing. You know, the brewery in Roswell, Georgia, with the Stargate in front of it. So if you guys are about to enjoy any time off soon, go visit Variant Brewing. They'd love to see
Yes,
you. And tell them
absolutely.
that Darth and Jason sent you, because we know our spies are telling us that you're visiting. So keep doing that. We love it. But going back to your point, Jason,
Yeah. Where were we?
I'm not even sure.
I don't even remember.
I don't know. We were talking about a show at some point called
Yes,
Animaniacs.
Animaniacs.
And going back to one of the earlier
Closing
points,
thoughts, ladies and
Yes,
gentlemen.
closing thoughts. Along with what Randy was saying earlier in the show, I actually found out that the average age of viewers for the show in 1995 was 25 years or older.
That makes total sense.
Due to the clever / irreverent humor. So that was like a fifth of the viewers that were tuning into the show. And we've got to touch back on the Midsummer Night's Dream because some of the translation, it's Dot translating for Yakko as he reads Puck's final speech in Midsummer Night's Dream. And just some of her comments are great. And as we said, Batman and Robin show up to rescue them from a really angry pixie who's being chased Pepe Le Pew style by Wacko.
Well, because
who sounds like Ringo Starr.
proving the point, which I've said before, that there is nothing that cannot be improved by the inclusion of Batman.
Yeah, this is the first time it's
This
happened.
is the first time it's
though.
actually happened. You
So
know,
many
every movie
times.
I've ever watched for the past 15 years, I've gone, you know what this movie needs?
Batman.
Well, it goes.
Find a movie that couldn't be improved by Batman.
Batman Begins.
Well, it had Batman.
But you can't improve it by adding Batman.
Actually, 2 Batman movies.
Anyway,
Batman.
Would one be like evil?
but I know
The last one we did that with was Cinderella. That was, when she's up in the tower.
Yeah.
And I went, you know what would make
Frozen.
this movie better? And my
Frozen.
wife just
Batman.
looks at me and she goes, Batman? And I went, yes, Batman!
the new answer is Rick and Morty, just to
Yeah.
throw her off the track.
I'm so alone. No,
But
there's 2.
the beginning of this little sketch of the Yakko, Wacko, and Dot doing Midsummer Night's Dream reminded me of our whole thing with Much Ado About Nothing. And
Did
the
you cry
past
in a
years-
corner? Did you go and weep?
Silently, yes. Especially after the stage nightmare I had the other night.
It's like
But but like we mentioned, listeners, we met Randy last year in our first ever go-around with Act One Theater for Shakespeare in the Park, which was a blast. And it was super hot with really heavy costumes and just so much
Very
commitment, so much
outside.
sweating. But
So much sweating.
well, one of the things that you have to concentrate on with Shakespeare, and Jason and Randy can agree to this since they're both actors, with Shakespeare, there's not really a whole lot of summary. You have to really get the lines down when you're doing a Shakespeare show. And I thought of both of you, honestly, when I was watching this episode of Animaniacs, because at the beginning of the Midsummer Night's Dream, there's some narrator saying, oh, here's Yakko with Midsummer Night's Dream from Shakespeare, as translated by Dot. Because if you're anything like Yakko, you don't know what the hell Shakespeare was saying. And it just...
If you're anything like most of the people who play in Shakespeare, you don't know what the hell he's saying.
Oh, no, because at one point, she stays with him at first, and Yakko says something like, if we shadows have offended, think but this and all is mended. And Dot says, yeah, if the actors in our show made you mad, it'll be okay if you look at it this way. And so she's kind of loosely translating, and it's accurate at first, but then later on...
there's a part of me that thinks Shakespeare would really get a kick out of that.
Oh, he would.
absolutely.
Because this point, Yakko, if we have unearned luck now to escape the serpent's tongue, and Dot just goes, what he said. And it's just like, after a certain point, yep, that's kind of what Shakespeare starts to feel
I've
like.
said before, watching Shakespeare, because the problem with Shakespeare is that when you're young, they make you read Romeo and Juliet, which is the worst thing he ever wrote. And
Sincerely, everyone who actually read the play.
it was seriously, Romeo and Juliet compared to Henry V or Hamlet or Othello or anything else, it's garbage. And for some reason, they make high schoolers read this, and so you have the girls going, ooh, and the guys going, I hate this Shakespeare guy. And it's such a shame.
I guess they figure that kids will relate to the whole...
Because they're young.
Lovers
well, yeah, and
whatever.
they're kids. Yeah, I mean,
kids relating to kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they're teenagers. They're moody. They're depressed. Let them read Hamlet.
Reading about murder is like
yeah,
what's really going to get them interested.
you know. But
have you seen their Netflix histories?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Let them read Titus Andronicus.
But what I tell people is, if you want to watch anything, if you're not into Shakespeare and you want to get into Shakespeare, go watch. Whatever, one of the Kenneth Branagh movies or whatever.
Any one of them.
But put the closed captions on.
Yes.
And don't feel bad about it. Just put closed captions on, and you'll actually understand about 50-60% more than you would have understood.
Absolutely. Than
Like
just
reading
hearing
subtitles.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
well, because Jason, you even said in our Much Ado production, there were these two little girls that ran up to Adam Brown and myself after our first show, and they're these two single-digit kids, and they're so excited to meet Beatrice and Benedict, and I was just amazed because they were so young.
Yeah.
They're like, you guys.
well, you
were
guys
so...
killed it.
Oh well, thank you.
You did.
But,
I mean, yeah, but you guys were so awesome.
One of those girls,
Yeah.
Jason spent the entire time with his ass in her face.
Excuse me.
Wait, hang on a
No,
second.
That was the first night where you, as the preacher, was. We had
my ass was in her face.
That's what I meant to say. Yes.
No, that's what he said.
Yeah.
No,
I thought you said her ass was in my face.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
because to give
we
you
had
some
an odd row.
context.
We had an odd row
Yeah.
of seats.
Yes, we were in a tiny, cramped black box theater, and I don't.
It was
mean
a very
cramped-
good theater.
It was a very
good
snug,
theater. Yeah.
like cozy theater. But to that end, we had such a packed house that we had to curve seats along the wall that actually came on stage with us.
Yeah, we eventually deleted. We did delete those chairs for subsequent.
Yeah,
shows,
so
yes.
that 9-year-olds weren't looking at Jason's ass for 30
It's
solid
good.
minutes.
It's good for them. Show them what the future looks like.
Hey, Georgie, we got Jason's ass down in the sewer.
That's not going to get. No one's going down there for that.
It started out as a sweet story, but it's like you said, Jason, when you get kids into Shakespeare at a young enough age before they can go to school and be made fun of for being a nerd for liking Shakespeare or whatever.
They're not old enough to know they're not supposed to like it.
Exactly. But these two girls had obviously met that before the nerd stigma could be placed on them. So that was great. They ran up to Adam and I like we're movie stars, and they were just like, we were so excited to watch you guys, and I was amazed.
Yeah.
Because they were so young, but they were so enthusiastic, and they thought everything was real. That was what was really precious about it. They were asking us questions like, are you guys really together in real life? And we're like, no, but we were good at pretending, weren't we? But they were just these tiny little kids who were just so sweet to talk to. And one of them just grabs me up in a big hug, and they're like, can we have our picture with you? It was the sweetest thing that I've ever seen in my life.
No.
So it makes it worth it to actually learn all the lines, if that helps. But...
And so Shakespeare is very much like Animaniacs.
Yes. So that being said, let's get some final thoughts from our guest who chose the show. So
Yes.
Randy,
Yes, it's all your fault.
after
so
all
go
this,
ahead and
after all this rambling, incoherent babble that you've had to suffer
What
through,
what show did I pick again?
I don't
something
even
with
know.
cartoon cats that look like Mickey Mouse.
Oh yeah.
I think it was
Felix?
Garfield.
Are they cats? Gazorp, I believe.
No, what was the ripoff of Garfield? Heathcliff.
Heathcliff, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
My grandma could never get those two straight.
Yeah,
She'd be
what?
like, Jade, which one's the orange cat? And I'm like, there are two of them. Nanny, like, there are two.
Grandma, don't buy any more Transmorpher DVDs from the grocery store.
But you love it.
It's great.
show you watch.
I've got
When
the
did you become an
Transmorpher
old
DVDs.
Jewish lady?
When did you become it in the sewer?
When you turn 70, you start talking like this.
But yeah, I think part of the reason why we've gone off the rails, which we always do on this show, but part of it is that we
It's
haven't
abuse.
done
It's abuse,
No,
but
but
you
we
know
haven't
you-
done
you
a
know you
television
love it.
show that's only 21 minutes and so long.
Yes.
We usually have a movie that's keeping us on track to some extent for at least an
Yes.
hour or two.
Yes.
So we do apologize if we went off the rails.
We need structure, and
Yes.
we're not getting it. And I think it's about time to have that conversation.
We're not adults, but we don't even play them on our podcast.
Yeah, we might get
so,
held back. That's the great thing, kids. When you grow up, they can't hold you back.
So, Randy, our Don Jon, who we personally agreed is light years ahead of Keanu Reeves and every other Don Jon we've ever seen.
Yes.
What are your final thoughts
Yeah.
on this episode of yours? Because we've very much enjoyed having you on the show.
Oh, well, I've very much enjoyed being here. Thank you. My final thoughts is that it's just, I literally watched Animaniac this particular episode, and it's the first time I've seen the Animaniacs in, can't even do math well enough right now.
That's it. Don't tell the listeners how long it's been since you left college.
Many years.
Many years.
Just a few months.
Yes. If you were born the last time I watched the Animaniacs, you probably can legally buy alcohol now.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a blast from the past, and I very much enjoyed doing it. In fact, I was pondering, watching all of the episodes again. That would probably not take too long at 20 minutes a pop. But
Yeah, they're
in any case, it obviously stands the test of time. The one episode I watched in detail was pretty funny. Like, I very much enjoyed the Midsummer Nights at the end.
Yes.
Completely forgotten about that.
nice shout out to Shakespeare. Yes.
Yeah, and just tied in well. And yeah, it's a fantastic show. If nobody's seen it, you should check it out.
So then officially, on a scale of Alf to Seinfeld, with Alf being the worst and Seinfeld being the best, where would you rate Animaniacs on that scale? Because the whole point of it is that, Alf, they're completely different, where Alf, you loved it as a kid, now maybe hate it as an adult, but Seinfeld being the exact opposite. So where does Animaniacs belong on that scale?
I think Animaniacs very clearly falls on the Seinfeld side of that, although, and probably a little bit further along than Night Court, not quite as right in the middle.
Okay. So like a little below Night Court or
A little above Night Court.
Okay.
Night Court, for being Night Court, yes, it is the best courtroom show, I say as a lawyer, that I've ever seen.
Just as Scrubs is the perfect hospital.
But there is a certain absurdity to Night Court that just doesn't translate quite as well as an adult as the absurdity of Animaniacs, which is a cartoon.
Oh yeah, like the zaniness of this show is it's unmatched.
Right.
Well, it's the Warner Brothers. It's that classic vibe that doesn't exist anymore. I still. It's funny because the show was on in '93, but to me, it was also a college thing because I watched it with my friends in college. I really didn't watch it as much as a kid, and so I was part of that. I guess that key demographic you mentioned, the 20. What was it you said? Like 25 to.
Oh yeah, the 25 and older who watched this. That was about a fifth of the audience base apparently when this show was originally on in 1993.
Well, it came out in '93, but there was 5 seasons, so it went through '98.
Well, I guess it was on the So it was on the air when I was in college. So we might have actually been watching.
I'm just talking about the stat from that particular year, so
Yeah.
it probably became an even bigger stat as the show went on.
Yeah.
To me, this I don't know what it was about the show, but it was never one of my favorites growing up. I liked it for what it was, for what I understood it to be, rather, because I didn't get how irreverent and clever the humor was when I first watched it. But going back and watching it now, it's it's so much slapstick incorporated with so much like dad humor, and it's really cute. And some of it's just downright filthy, but the really filthy stuff will come from out of left field, and then it's like a shooting star.
Right.
It happens really quickly, it's over, and then that's it. So it's just one of those shows that I can still appreciate. So yeah, I'd actually agree with your scale, Randy, that it belongs, a little above Night Court, because it stands up in a way that I'm sure that this is like peeling an onion with this show, in the sense that there are jokes that even now that I'm watching it, I'll probably get even more of them if I go back a few years from now and watch it again. So it's like,
sure.
I'll pick up on something new every time I watch it.
The other challenging part is, like you kind of hinted at this earlier, like we watched one episode out of 125
Oh,
or
yeah,
so.
because this was episode 25 just of season 1.
Right. And so like the like I really wish we could have done, like in hindsight, maybe a Pinky and Brain episode.
But hindsight is horrifying.
That's right.
Heh.
It's hey Brian, what you want to do tonight? The same thing we do every night, Pinky.
Try to take over the world. Because, am I incorrect in this? Did Pinky and the Brain ever get their own show? Or
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought
Yeah.
so.
Oh,
But
yeah.
they started off in Animaniacs.
Did
right?
they have their own show, or did they take the clips from Animaniacs and then just tie them together?
Ooh,
No,
I wonder.
they had their own show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure, because I remember Pinky and the Brain very well. So it just, I couldn't remember. I was honestly surprised to see them on Animaniacs, because I had forgotten that they got their start there. So
Interesting.
yeah, so it's funny to get a blast from the past that way. So Randy, before we let you go, are there any upcoming projects that you would like to mention to our listeners to have them looking out for in the near future?
So, unlike these guys, in addition to Shakespeare, I'd occasionally dabble in musical theater. And so I'm going to be in Mamma Mia.
Oh,
Very exciting.
I'm going to be playing Colin Firth.
He was in Bridget Jones' Diary, for those of you who don't know.
I'm playing Colin
Mr.
Firth
Dossie.
in Mamma Mia, and it will be every weekend in September at the School Street Playhouse, which used to be the Cumming Playhouse.
Make sure you send us something that we can link to.
Yes. Is there a website that you'd like to mention now where people can read the latest and greatest?
Yep, schoolstreetplayhouse.com, I think, but I'll need to double check that.
Perfect. And if you guys would like to see Randy in our rendition of Much Ado About Nothing, you can still reach it at Theater Alpharetta.
TheaterAlpharetta.com. It'll take you straight to the YouTube where we have the video is on YouTube. Yeah.
Yes, so you can see you can catch not just Randy, but myself and Jason as well in our rendition of Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes.
And hopefully Randy will be joining us in the studio for future projects
Love to do
and
it.
episodes that we've got coming up. So Randy, is there anywhere on the social mediums where you would like anyone to find you?
No.
Nah, it's
answer.
not that big of a
Yeah.
deal anyway.
Yeah,
Anywhere
social
we found.
social media.
He's
Yeah.
like me. He's not. He's
It's
not. Yeah.
that social media thing isn't going to last. It's just
It's just a phase.
flash,
it's a flash in the pan.
Oh my. So that being said, listeners, you can always find us on our social media. We're Hindsight is Horrifying on Instagram, the most popular of the mediums.
Yes, even though it was broken today.
Yes, I heard.
yeah.
I heard tell of that from you guys. We are Hindsight Horror on Twitter. You can find our page on Facebook at Hindsight is Horrifying. Jason's never ever going to fix my email. We get it. You have email. But no, we don't have that anymore. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, use
So-
social media to get in touch with us. I do have a Twitter and a Facebook. Don't use it. If you want to get in touch with me, you can find me on Instagram at North Foggy.
Yes.
And Darth, you don't have Instagram yet, but you're gonna get Instagram.
Oh,
you
am
need
I?
to get Instagram. You gotta. It's so much more fun than
Hindsight is Horrifying talks about me as often as I need to be talked
That's
about.
true. That's true.
So anyway, listeners, please just check us out on social media if you like. Australia, our love letters are in the mail, as always. We love you all. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you to all who have been visiting Variant Brewing. We appreciate that.
Yes. Make sure when you go to Variant Brewing, you tell them why you're there.
Exactly. The
Because you-
bartenders know who
because
Dark
you-
Jader
to
is.
drink beer.
Yeah, because you want to
Yes.
get drunk.
Yes, and the bar it's cute because besides Dragon Con, that's the most time I ever feel like an actual honest to goodness celebrity. I walk in
Yes,
and they're
yeah.
like, Darth is here. What episode are we doing on the podcast this week? They actually get excited about it. It's
It's
really
awesome.
sweet. So shout out to Michael and Patrick, two of my best buddy bartenders at Variant. Thank you guys for everything you do, along with the Curlings who own it. And listeners, thank you once again for tuning in to our derivative nonsense. We appreciate it. You spending your drive time, office time, whatever kind of time you're really spending listening to this nonsensical idiocracy. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Darth Jader with...
Hindsight is
That's not your
horrifying.
name.
What?
This has been Darth Jader with...
Oh, I thought you were talking about the name of the show. Sorry.
Jason!
Sorry, folks. Just pretend that didn't happen.
And
okay.
we'll bleep
we
over
can
it.
just, yeah, it's going to be a very
What
long
did Darth
bleep.
and Jason bleep this week? And our very special guest star, please say goodbye to the listeners for us.
Goodbye, listeners. Randy Bampfield.
Yes,
Goodbye.
thank you, Randy.
Randy!
Hey, everybody. Y'all have a good night. Before we kick it into high gear again, y'all have a good night. Thanks for tuning in, and we will check in next time.